Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, this is the story of what if Naruto was born as Uchiha with cursed eyes part 1. 7 years after the Kyuubi attack, a tiny shadow was sprinting down the vacant streets, turning at random intervals, panting roughly from the constant strenuous activity. The only way of actually telling there was a presence moving along the streets was thanks to the lights that casted a shadow as the presence moved past them. The shadow finally came to a halt in an isolated alleyway, trying to capture its fleeting breath. That shadow outline took a few moments to capture its breath as it basked in the silence that permeated the immediate vicinity. As the minutes crawled on by, as did the position of the moon's light, underneath of the heavenly bodies glowed the shadowed silhouette was instantly dissipated, revealing just who it was. The shadow was now replaced by a boy no older than 7 years old, whose jet black hair seemed to radiate in the moonlight, even though his eyes were half-lidded due to exhaustion and mental fatigue, but his azure blue eyes still glowed brilliantly in the dead of the night. His face was covered in dirt and small cuts that were dried over by blood thanks to running all over the village all night. His most prominent facial features were 3 dark whisker birthmarks on each one of his cheeks. His skin was fairly well tanned, most likely from his constant movement. He wore a white shirt that had multiple stains and tatters. His cream-colored slacks had holes on the knees and thighs, showing their deplorable condition. His white shoes had holes on the insides as the soles hung down. The tired Ravenette's breathing hitched when he heard the stomping of numerous pairs of feet and loud voices nearing his position. The demon went this way. Today is the day we finally rid ourselves of that plague. Yes, now we can finish what our beloved Yondaime started. That last exclamation really got the frenzied mob's blood pumping as images of the Yondaime Hokage entered their alcohol-influenced minds. The young boy could feel the stampede getting closer and closer as he watched the loose, smaller objects rattle. Naruto inched back into the furthest, darkest corner of the alley and curled up into a ball. Naruto shut his eyes and prayed to anyone that was listening to spare him from the torture of the fox hunts that always occurred on his birthday. The things that occurred to him ranged from being stabbed in the eye to being bludgeoned by any number of blunt objects. Last year, however, was by far the worst out of all of the fox hunts. The mob discovered that when set on fire, his skin would regenerate before the fire would actually kill him, so he needed to stay there as a human bonfire for 2 hours. They continued the treatment until Naruto begged them for death, but then, as usual, the ANBU stepped in and drove the mob away and took him to the hospital, only for him to lie in the bed and heal on his own since the doctors refused to heal him. He still wondered why he never went unconscious. Naruto was shaken from his thoughts when a shrill shriek alerted the bloodthirsty mob to his location. Naruto looked up to see that the mob had already positioned itself at the only way into or out of the alley. Naruto's facial expression curled into one of disgust as he smelled the alcohol reeking off of the fox hunters. There was a woman with pink hair at the head of the mob who was giving him the nastiest glare he had ever seen. He couldn't understand why she hated him so much. He had never done anything wrong. It was like the matron at the orphanage all over again. "We finally cornered you, you damn demon," the pink-haired woman screeched out, which made Naruto slap his hands over his ears. The crowd was so intoxicated that they didn't even wince when the pink-haired ringleader spoke in an abnormal decibel, which was saying something considering just how loud her screech was. "I am not a demon," Naruto yelled back, defiantly disputing the woman's false claim. Naruto inched back until his back hit the cold stone wall. He had nowhere left to go this time. He knew he couldn't count on the ANBU, who were supposed to be watching him, to help out. "Yes, you are. You killed our loved ones, you monster," the woman shouted at the cornered boy as her anger kept growing. Her eyes only saw red as reminders of all she lost breached her mind, making her anger grow exponentially. Now she finally had the chance to cleanse herself of the demon plague. "I'm no demon, lady. My name is Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki, and I have never killed any of your loved ones," Naruto exclaimed honestly. Because he was only 7, he couldn't kill anyone even if he wanted to. He had never even met these people outside of these fox hunts, so he never met their families. The only people that would speak to him were a few of the ANBU, the Ikarakus, and the old man. Why did the villagers hate him so much? It just didn't make sense to him. It was now that 2 men sporting Chunin flak jack vests walked out of the mob and stood in front of the pink-haired lady. They both had shaggy black hair with matching gray, soulless eyes that only added to their evil facade, or at least they appeared to the Ravenet that way. They both wore smug grins that promised unbearable amounts of pain for the demon in front of the two Hidden Leaf shinobi. It was now that Naruto realized that these two were actually twins, something he missed in his earlier panic state. It doesn't matter who you are anymore, demon, because soon you'll just be a pile of smoldering ash, they bellowed smugly and in perfect unison. If the situation had not been so dire for Naruto, he would have sweat dropped at the ridiculousness of the two goons in front of him. Naruto released one last exhausted sigh as he finally gave up on his attempt to explain himself. Naruto shut his eyes and bit down on his tongue, since there was no way he would give them the satisfaction of hearing his screams of pain. The sadistic twins broke into a fit of chuckles when they noticed the demon's pitiful actions. Already giving up, are we, little demon? The one on the left taunted his victim as he grinned evilly. Both men went through the hand signs for the grand fireball jutsu to make good on their promise of death. Then they noticed that a man had moved in between them and was also looking at the Ravenet demon. They both turned their gray eyes on the mysterious man with curiosity. The man was tall and lean, with a short beard, mustache, and sideburns that ended by pointing upwards. He wore a golden cross pendant around his neck that hung down and rested on his chest. On his head was a wide-brimmed black hat decorated by a large white plume on top of it. He wore a long black coat that was left open and it blew with the wind, and he wasn't wearing a shirt underneath. The collar and sleeves of the coat sported a flower pattern over the red fabric stitched into the coat. His light purple pants were held in place by a decorated belt and tucked into his large boots. There was a large ornately decorated blade strapped onto his back vertically. The blade was at least 7 feet in length from tip of the grip to the point of the blade. The hilt of the blade was a golden cross guard with golden bars extending to the left and right. The handle of the blade was wrapped up with white tape and had a blue bead as the pommel of the hilt. The long blade was midnight black with a very prominent sheen running along the bottom. Overall, the blade in its entirety looked like a large black cross. The most noticeable feature of the man was not the blade on his back, but the golden yellow eyes that made them look like those of a hawk. The man released his extremely lengthy blade slowly and without shifting his gaze. Naruto had not seen any of this thanks to having his eyes shut. The twin on the right looked at the magnificent black blade and whistled in appreciation as he gazed at it. "That is an impressive blade you got there, friend. I can't wait to see it cut that demon." That was when the man's angry, hate-infused monologue was cut off literally by the unknown blade wielder. The unknown swordsman with a singular fluid motion separated the Leaf Chunin at the stomach. The torso and the legs each fell to the ground with separate thuds at the moment of contact. Basking in a bath of blood were the man's intestines, which were empty from where his stomach once was. The brother of the now corpse cried out in equal parts shock and anger as the sudden actions finally settled in. "You bastard, why would you do that instead of killing that demon?" That was the last word the man would ever utter as the mystery man brought the midnight black blade up and separated the second twin's head from his shoulders. The head fell to the ground and rolled over to the front of the mob, looking at the people there with the same shocked and angry expression, telling them he never saw the attack coming. The people at the front of the group each took a step back in fear except the pink-haired ringleader. The mob looked down in shock at the head that was staring back at them, each with fear lingering in their eyes. A few of the more weak-willed members turned a sickly shade of green, and quickly made to exit the alley to empty the contents of their stomach thanks to the grisly scene and the affects of the alcohol. The pink-haired leader moved her mouth to speak but paused when she felt cold steel pressed against her neck. "I believe there was a certain law passed in this village prohibiting anyone to speak about a certain event 7 years ago. The punishment for breaking said law is death. A death Yoro will be glad to grant you." The man's voice echoed throughout the silent alley, but despite his calm tone each person could feel the threat behind those words. As if agreeing with its master's words, the black blade known as Yoro gleamed. No one in the mob said a word or even moved a muscle as fear paralyzed them when they all gazed fearfully at the blade. All of the poor excuses for human beings were rooted to their spots as each person viewed their demise in the reflection of the blade. It may have only been a few, but due to the thick tension it felt like hours of unbearable silence. Finally, when the man with the eyes of a hawk lowered his blade, they let out a breath they were consciously holding in. "Disappear!" With that the one-word command, the mob dispersed in a hurry, trying to funnel out of the suddenly too thin alleyway, fearing for their meager livelihoods. The swordsman watched impassively as the rats scurried away. He moved to the two corpses and removed their bodies from Naruto's line of sight to avoid from traumatizing the young boy. He turned back to see the raven-haired boy still against the wall trembling. Reaching out, he placed a comforting hand on top of Naruto's head, but Naruto flinched in response. The man's stoic expression cracked for the first time since he had entered the village, since this boy who he knew was so terrified. It was his first time in the Hidden Leaf Village since his Minato Namikaze was nominated as Hokage, and here his son was being treated like this. He could only ask why when he met the boy's father. Also, if he recalled correctly, today was Naruto and his sisters, Naomi and Narumi's birthday. This also brought more questions to the legendary swordsman's mind. It is quite alright, young one. I will do you no harm. I promise. Mihawk's voice was smooth and calm. Naruto felt this man, Mihawk's hand, rustle through his black hair and let his eyes slowly open up so he could gaze up at the man with the eyes of a hawk. Naruto continued to look into the taller male's eyes, seeking out the anger, disgust, or just emptiness he always saw when gazing into most of the people he had always seen. When he couldn't find it, no matter how deep he looked, the boy eased himself from under the man's hand so he could look at him unobstructed. "Excuse me, mister, but what is your name?" Naruto asked in the most polite tone he could muster, afraid if he spoke the wrong way he would be assaulted by the swordsman. Mihawk smiled softly at the polite raven-haired boy and cleared his throat so he would be heard clearly. "My name is Mihawk Dracula, young Naruto, and I am actually a friend of your family." At the mention, his keen eyes could see the young Namikaze Uzumaki tense at the mention of his family. "Is it not your birthday? If so, why are you not at home celebrating with them?" Mihawk questioned Naruto in the same soft tone of voice, not wanting to rattle the scared boy. Naruto shuffled in place as his eyes found the road to be the most interesting of places at this moment in time. "Well, since it is our birthday, they took Naomi and Narumi out to eat and get ready for the party. Then too, Minato told me to go to my room. Which I did, but after a few hours I came out, and then I was on my way to the forest, then the villagers found me," Naruto admitted in a soft yet still bitter tone. Naruto personally wondered why he couldn't bring himself to call Minato his father, but shrugged it off for something that would pass without much more thought. He was only 7, after all, such things were beyond his scope of comprehension. "That doesn't sound like the Minato and Kushina I know." Kushina was ecstatic when she learned she'd be having triplets. "That didn't change when I helped Minato fight the Kyuubi. When I visit them, I will ask them about Naruto without telling them I know where he is. Hopefully their neglect hasn't cost them a son." Mihawk recalled Naruto's subconscious correction on how he addressed Minato. "If they fail my test, then I shall train the boy until the academy years are over and send him back to the village." Mihawk had yet to train or even name an apprentice, someone who he could train and teach some of his skills to pass on to the next generation. "Naruto, follow me. I will take you somewhere that you will be safe from these people." Mihawk strained to say the word, as in reality they were nothing more than monsters blinded by hate towards what they are using as a scapegoat. Naruto shuffled over a little closer to Mihawk when the elder man and the boy walked through the shinobi district. This was where most of the fox hunters lived, since they were Chunin and Genin mostly. Naruto hoped that Mihawk was strong enough to deal with the people who seemed to live just to hate him. That tension soon faded as the pair entered the clan district, where they were mostly neutral to his presence. Neutral to him except the two most arrogant of Konoha's clans, the Hyuga and Uchiha, 2 of the 4 noble clans. That was why he got nervous again when they entered the Uchiha compound, where the red-eyed humans all glared in their direction. Mihawk just ignored them unless they started to glare at Naruto, then he flared his killer intent at them. The discerning eye of Mihawk Dracula picked up on their tense behavior and high state of alert, but decided to think on that later. Naruto smiled softly when he saw the familiar house in the center of the compound. Mihawk stepped up and knocked on the front door gently as he and Naruto remained in a comfortable silence. There was the sound of a few hurried footsteps before the paper-thin sliding door slid open to reveal a stoic teen. The teen had deep, black eyes that matched his hair, which was worn in a ponytail. His bangs were short. He had on a black shirt with the Uchiha clan symbol on the back, with bandages around his ankles and black sandals. The teen's black eyes widened when he saw who was standing before him. This was Itachi Uchiha, the eldest son of Fugaku and Mikoto Uchiha. He was surprised because first off there was a swordsman even more renowned than the 7 swordsmen of the mist in front of him. Secondly, the person he was getting ready to see was already here in front of him. "Itachi ni!" Naruto exclaimed happily as he launched himself at the teen's shins and clung on to the teen. Itachi looked down at Naruto with a curious gaze before he to match the infectious smile on Naruto's face. After getting Naruto to let go of him, Itachi turned to look at Mihawk and silently motioned for them to enter. As the two walked by him, he shot a glance at 2 Uchiha conversing while looking his way with their Sharingan spinning. Responding with his own blazing glare, Itachi slid the door closed and walked to the living space where Naruto and Mihawk were sitting. Mihawk waited until the young Uchiha had taken a seat next to an absolutely beaming Naruto before he addressed him. "It is good to see you again, Itachi. I assume all is well in your training?" Mihawk inquired with an assertive voice that made Itachi stiffen slightly as he was gazed upon. Shifting with unease, Itachi mustered the courage to look at his one-time sensei whose eyes had always unnerved him. This was the man who had taught Itachi all of the basics of what it meant to be a shinobi. He taught him to master basic techniques and also how to control his emotions. However, that only applied to negative emotions which always reared up on the battlefield and would cause an early death. "Hi Sensei, I have made sure to always keep my basics sharper than they were the day before, as well as reining in my emotions when the case calls for it," Itachi responded in an even tone that was nearing monotone. Itachi released a breath he didn't know he was holding once he saw his old sensei nod his head in approval of his choices. Itachi then looked at the curious Naruto, who was trying to piece together what they were talking about. "And what are you doing here, Naruto-kun?" Itachi asked the young boy curiously, even though he most likely knew the answer already. At the mention of why he was here, Naruto visibly deflated into the 2-person couch with a forlorn expression. "They told me to wait in my room for something I didn't do while they took Naomi and Narumi to get ready for the party. I left, and tried to get to the forest before it got dark, except the fox hunters were out early." Naruto started to tremble with frustration and anger at how his so-called family treated him. Itachi frowned, already aware of the neglect that Naruto had to deal with, which he and his mother tried to fill. Wrapping the boy in a hug, Naruto began to slowly calm in his surrogate brother's embrace. Mihawk waited until Naruto was calmed down by the Uchiha next to him before he tried to talk with the boy. Now, while he normally would never condone such emotional outbursts, he could understand why Naruto was like this, but he couldn't understand how it felt. He was living in the world's kindest village, he was the son of the Hokage, he had 2 sisters who were minutes younger than he, and he was the jailer of the soul of the Kyuubi no Yoko. This boy should be considered a saint, no a plague. If his parents wanted to lose his love, he wouldn't interfere, but that didn't mean he wouldn't help the boy out. "Naruto, how would you like to train under my guidance, much like Itachi did once upon a time?" Mihawk asked when Naruto caught his gaze and waited patiently for the boy's response to his offer of apprenticeship. Naruto looked up with shock. No one had ever offered him such a thing before in his short life. Even his so-called parents rejected training him, stating that Naomi and Narumi would need it more than he would. His azure eyes quickly changed from a look of bewilderment to one of pure determination. Naruto clenched his hands and nodded at the swordsman. Mihawk allowed a small smile to spread across his face when he saw the fire in Naruto's eyes. "Very good, Naruto. I want you to go and write a letter to Minato and Kushina and tell them you are leaving. When you are finished, give me the letter, and I will deliver it and place it in your room." Naruto nodded in response, and Itachi told him that there was paper and a pen in his room that Naruto could use to write said letter. Naruto excused himself and left the room to go and write the letter of departure. Itachi turned to look at Mihawk once Naruto left the room. "Mihawk-senpai, I also recommend that you let Lord Third and my mother know about Naruto's departure. They are among the few that will be there that actually care for Naruto." Itachi admitted rather sadly that a boy who had such a burden to carry would be shunned. While Naomi had the Yin chakra and Narumi the Yang, Naruto carried the soul and conscience of the chakra monster. They got the power while Naruto received the hatred of the beast. Itachi only wondered when Naruto's expertly crafted mask of happiness would crack into the impassive and detached boy he knew was underneath. "And to those aside from those who care for him, I will remember that. However, I need to ask you what is going on in this village at the moment. First, Naruto is being hunted like he is a game animal, and all of the Uchiha are very tense, almost anxious if I had to describe it. I am sure you know what is happening, Weasel. Mihawk instantly noticed how Itachi's posture became much more tense than it was before. Mihawk raised his hand indicating for Itachi to calm himself before speaking. Itachi's rather volatile reaction though only served to intrigue him more. It seemed the village has gotten a little rotten in his time away. My father has convinced the Uchiha to plan a rebellion. He has used the isolation we put ourselves in and the animosity from the civilians to fuel their hatred. They wish to change the fact that an Uchiha has never been Hokage. Father knows he can't possibly challenge Hokagesama in combat, so he is trying to get other clans to engage in a civil war against the Hokage. Itachi could only question how his clan could fall so far to the point of trying to destroy the Leaf, his home. He personally decided he would always be Itachi Uchiha of the Hidden Leaf before anything else. I am the Hokage's information pipeline to the working of the coup, but still Hokagesama and Lord Third are trying to negotiate with our leaders. Unfortunately, the Uchiha elders are so blinding by their blessed eyes to see they would fail. We are still coming up with a plan in case the talks fail, Itachi informed his sensei, knowing he wouldn't spill the S-class secret of the Uchiha rebellion. Even if he wanted to, he could never lie to the man. It just seemed that his eyes could even see through his genjutsu. Mihawk took all of this information and nodded his head in acceptance. If the Uchiha will not compromise, then I can see only one true solution to the problem. That would be extermination of the clan. If I know this council like I think I do, they will probably try to have a scapegoat, probably another Uchiha. I know you have the skills to do so. This is only a prediction, of course, but if it does happen, I want you to come to this place after the proceedings. Mihawk pulled out a slip of paper from his jacket and slowly handed it towards the teen, still maintaining a blank facial expression. Itachi took the piece of paper, wondering what it could read. Moving his eyes downward and scanned over the paper and what it read, earning a raised brow. This is in the land of iron, is it not? Itachi asked, not entirely sure about the location and its reach, having only read up on the land a few times. It was a completely neutral country that didn't allow any shinobi in its borders without extreme priority. It was also filled with warriors called samurai who didn't use chakra in the same way that shinobi do. They used it to insulate their swords, and it is said that is where shinobi learned it from wandering ronin. Yes, it is. I plan to take Naruto there to train without the annoyance of hunting parties when they eventually notice his absence. The samurai will not allow any shinobi on the land. I know their leader Mifune, and I am certain that he will allow me to train Naruto there. That is why I want you to assist in the boys' training. Mihawk explained his plan for Naruto, and Itachi had to admit that Mihawk was indeed very sharp. Despite how they treat Naruto, once his disappearance would be noticed, they would no doubt try and recover him. They couldn't even brand him a missing nin because he was basically a civilian. Itachi looked up and nodded silently, stating he would be there. Meanwhile, while the two soon-to-be senseis were speaking to each other, Naruto was sitting there staring at the empty paper in front of him. He had been in this position for a few minutes now, just holding the pen. His thoughts were moving at a mile per second as he tried to write but just couldn't. Why is this so difficult? Just tell them that you are moving on. It's not like they will find out for a few months. Just do it, Naruto screamed at himself in his mind. That was until he recalled what happened today on his birthday of all days. Flashback. Naruto was sitting in his room thinking about the day ahead and if he would be included in the festivities. He had learned that if he stayed in his room, he would usually avoid the trouble that was always dumped on him when he left his sanctuary. Naruto smiled, looking forward to seeing Hiruzen, Mikoto, and Itachi, since they were the only ones who would bring him gifts and his own small cake. Naruto knew he might have given up and ran as far away as possible if it was not for those three people, the only ones he could consider precious to him. Outside of his room stood one of his sisters, Narumi, who was standing there wanting to knock on her brother's door, but just not able to do it. She had taken to noticing that whenever the family went out, they would never take Naruto. When they were training in taijutsu, she could never find her elder brother. Even at dinner, it would only be her, Naomi, and their parents at the table talking and being happy. She couldn't even remember the last time they had spoken to each other. That made her heart hurt, thinking that she could have pushed her brother away without even knowing it. I hope it isn't too late. Narumi hoped with all her heart she was about to finally knock when she heard something. Wunchin. Narumi turned around to see her sister running up to her with a large grin on her face as she was literally bouncing on the heels of her feet. Narumi smiled at Naomi's excitement. She was always the most energetic between the three of them. Or was she? Narumi didn't know Naruto's personality, and that only made her heart hurt more. Hello Naomi-chan. What's up? Narumi asked politely with a warm smile on her lips even though she already knew what she was going to say. It was obvious she was excited about their birthday and all of the new stuff she would get from everyone. That also made Narumi wonder if Naruto ever received any gifts on their shared birthdays because she never remembered him being with her and Naomi. Her thoughts were broken when she heard the sound of something shattering. Narumi saw the pale face of her sister as they looked down at one of their mother's favorite vases in pieces on the floor. That was when Naruto's door opened and out stepped the black-haired boy and looked at the two of his sisters, but before he could question the two on what happened they heard stomping on the stairs in front of Naruto's room. Kushina had heard the sound of something break and quickly went up to where she heard the noise. Reaching the top step, she immediately looked on the floor where she saw one of her favorite vases sitting there completely broken. Her eyes then trained themselves on the first person in her view, Naruto. What did you do? Kushina screamed at her son, her eyes alive with anger, as she glared heatedly at Naruto. Naruto simply stared at the woman who was supposed to be his mother with shock at what she just said. She was blaming him, who was clearly just in his doorway when Naomi was right next to the table where the vase once sat. What was the only thing Naruto could think to say, still completely surprised by the entire situation in front of him? Naomi and Narumi each stood there silently surprised for their own reasons that were quite similar. Naomi was shocked because she thought for sure she would have been caught and held guilty for the accident, but instead Naruto was getting in trouble. Narumi was shocked because how their mother could so readily blame Naruto without even asking what happened. Both girls had one thing in common: neither of them had said anything in their brother's defense, leaving him to take the blame. I don't want to hear your excuses, Naruto. You know what? Just go to your room. I don't want to see your face. Kushina screamed harshly at Naruto, and without even giving him a chance to defend himself, she turned to her daughters with a motherly smile. Come on girls, let's go get you two ready for your party, Kushina stated before taking off down the steps with excitement evident because of the thought of shopping. This also left the three siblings standing there in an awkward silence. Naomi gave Naruto a small smile, while Narumi gave him an apologetic look for not standing up for him. Naruto got them both in his field of vision, and gave them both a blood-chilling glare that made the both of them flinch. Naruto walked back into the darkness of his bedroom and slammed the door that rattled the pictures hanging from the wall. Narumi stood there staring at the closed door, and was about to go and talk to her brother, but then her hand was caught in a firm grasp. It was Naomi who started pulling her down the steps with a huge grin. Come on Wunchin, it is time to get ready for the party, Naomi exclaimed in joy as she dragged her sister along with her. Narumi's view of Naruto's door was fading and she frowned as she got a terrible premonition about her brother. Naruto-kun. Naruto was laying face down in his bed screaming angrily into his pillow after his confrontation with his mother. It always was like this when it came down to his sisters and himself, he being punished and them rewarded. He questioned if this was what family was. It couldn't be what a real family was. It took Naruto about 30 minutes before he stopped trembling with anger and frustration. Naruto wouldn't allow himself to shed a tear because of his so-called family's treatment. Looking at the window, Naruto walked over to it and opened it. After sparing one last glance at his room, Naruto left through the window and took off into the village. Flashback end. With that memory fresh in his mind, any inhibitions he had about writing the letter were quickly squashed as the tip of the pen scribbled furiously along the paper. As the words continued to grow, Naruto felt a sense of relief sweeping over his body. He stabbed the pen down one final time before sealing it in an envelope. Naruto let a satisfied smirk cross his impassive face now that it was done. He glared at the envelope, and in that heated glare his azure eyes flashed red for a moment, and in that moment Naruto's red eyes gained one black tomo in each eye. Standing up, Naruto walked back towards the living space where Itachi and Mihawk were engaged in a much calmer conversation. Walking straight up to Mihawk, Naruto dropped the envelope in his hand. Mihawk nodded and Naruto moved to sit back down near Itachi, who started to talk with the young boy. Walking out, Mihawk made his way towards where he knew the Namikaze family compound to be. Mihawk walked down the path inside of the courtyard to the main home of the family of Namikazes. Many flowers were shining brightly in the moonlight, showing just how well they were taken care of, unlike the sun. As he got closer, he could hear the sounds of people laughing and celebrating the two princess guardians of Konoha, or that was what they were shouting at the top of their lungs. Stepping into the open front door, he was greeted by numerous shinobi and civilians all scattered around the decorated foyer. Mihawk was sure that most of these people were here for the sole reason that their efforts would be noticed by the Hokage. Politics always had disgusted the man of honor. Looking around, he ignored the gaggle of children that ran past him in favor for glancing at the people dressed in ceremonial kimonos, drinking sake and joking with each other. He was not able to locate Mikoto, nor was he able to spot Hiruzen, which made him frown slightly. Hearing his friend's laughter from the crowd, Mihawk turned to his left, where he saw a smaller, more intimate group of people. Minato and Kushina were sitting behind Naomi and Narumi, who each were wearing smiles, though the discerning eye of the swordsman could tell that Narumi's was a little more forced than genuine. It seemed that they were the light of this party that people were trying to revolve to but were currently being forced away, probably because they were currently opening gifts. Naomi was almost a replica of her mother in terms of both appearance and behavior, to the point where it was eerie. Naomi's hair was a vibrant shade of red and was straight as a line. The red hair fell just past her shoulders. Her violet eyes were currently shimmering with happiness, just like any 7-year-old's would be in her position. She was dressed in an elegant red kimono that made her look like the child from a family of nobles. There were smaller golden accents to emphasize the brilliant shade of red that she had on for the party. Narumi was also looking every ounce as elegant as her sister did in what she was wearing for the party. The kimono that Narumi was sporting was a very light shade of blue that looked very much like the sky on a clear day. Narumi had similar accents to those of her sister, the only difference being they were silver. Narumi had long, straight hair just like her mother and sister, only hers was blonde and slightly longer than Naomi's. Her eyes were blue, not the same blue as Naruto's. No, they were like the sky as well. Her eyes were hiding something that made Mihawk wonder, but brushed it off. The first person that he had seen give them gifts was Kakashi, Minato's last living student. He was wearing the traditional shinobi garb even at the party. He walked up with an eye smile as he handed each girl 2 medium-sized boxes that were wrapped. Eventually the 2 girls got them open to reveal a couple sets of kunai and shuriken. He told them that they would eventually learn shuriken jutsu, and how they would obviously need shuriken to do so. Both girls gave him a thank you and moved their gifts to the side to make more room for the others they were to get. 2 people stepped up to Happy Family next, and they were none other than the 2 loyal Sannin, Jiraiya and Tsunade. Each of them were carrying a scroll in their arms that they handed to each of the children. Mihawk watched as the 2 children signed both the Slug and Toad contracts. He listened as Jiraiya explained that the elders of each clan discussed it, and agreed to let the children sign both contracts. Naomi had no qualms with signing both contracts without question, while Narumi was slightly more reserved about the whole thing. Mihawk turned away and went to walk up the steps to what was Naruto's door. Opening the door, Mihawk's face remained stoic, however on the inside he was surprised at what he saw. Naruto's room was quite literally the definition of Spartan. The room was not decorated anywhere, not even painted, it was simply the wooden panels that made up the walls of the room. Taking a step into the room, the floorboards creaked under his weight, the sound of which echoed, showing just how scarcely furnished the room was. There was a bed, a small one, but it was there. It was a simple mattress that had a pillow across the top of it, but there were no sheets or blankets to accompany it. Moving over to a small desk near the window, Mihawk placed a letter down next to a dwindling candle which he assumed Naruto used for a light source. With one fleeting glance, Mihawk left the room and closed the door, and was greeted by 2 people. The first was the last Hokage of the Hidden Leaf and the god of shinobi Hiruzen Sarutobi, dressed in formal clothing as was reasonable. The second person was Mikoto Uchiha, the matriarch of the Uchiha family, and one of the few people in the village who treated Naruto like a human being, it seemed. This was very convenient for the hawk-eyed man, since he wouldn't need to search for them in the mobs of people. Hiruzen gave Mihawk a warm smile that was almost grandfatherly in nature. "Oh, if it isn't Mihawk-kun, I haven't seen you in ages, my boy, how are you?" Mihawk gave the old Sarutobi a slight inching of the head, acknowledging that it had indeed been a while since he had seen the man. The last time the two had met, Mihawk was asked to assist in a rather high-priority mission during the war. A few people had been suspicious since he was a wandering shinobi, but when Minato gave him a vote of confidence, that suspicion was eliminated for the most part. "It has, Hiruzen-sama. I have been quite well, thank you for asking," Mihawk replied in a respectful tone, and before Hiruzen could respond, Mikoto stepped forth with a glare trained on Mihawk. "May I ask what it was you were doing inside of Naruto-kun's room, Mihawk?" Mikoto asked, her voice dripping with venom, for as far as she knew, he would treat Naruto the same as the villagers did. It was bad enough that his family would either ignore or scold him. He didn't need someone seeking him out in his own room. Mihawk knew he needed to calm Mikoto down before her killer intent alerted everyone at the party to their location. If that was to happen, then his and Naruto's exit from the village that much more difficult. It is much easier to leave with someone no one is looking for. "Please calm yourself, Mikoto-san. Naruto is perfectly okay at this moment," Mihawk replied in hopes of calming the increasingly agitated woman. Mihawk withheld the sigh of relief when he saw Mikoto was calming herself down, but was still tensed and waiting for an explanation. "Naruto is with Itachi right now at your home, Mikoto-san. If you two would follow me back, I will gladly explain why." Hiruzen and Mikoto glanced at each other for a moment before they turned and gave Mihawk two curt nods of their heads. Mihawk nodded as well, and the three shinobi walked down the stairs and made their way out into the night. Just before Mihawk made it out of the doorway, he felt a small tug on the hem of his coat. Slowly turning around, the swordsman saw that it was Narumi who had tugged on his coat. Narumi shrunk under the intense gaze of the man's hawk-like eyes, but gulped down the lump in her throat. Taking a deep breath, she looked up at the much taller man. "See, can you give this to Naruto, please?" Narumi's voice was shaky, and so were her hands as she opened them to show a small black box resting in her palms. She couldn't even bring herself to call Naruto her brother, because never once had she or anyone else treated him like their family. She didn't even know if he would accept her gift. After all, he had no reason to care about this family. Mihawk stared at the girl before he looked at the box. It was clear that she wanted to make amends with Naruto, but he wouldn't pressure Naruto into accepting or denying this olive branch. It would be Naruto's choice to make, and his alone. Mihawk nodded and took the box and put it in his coat before walking out of the lively house, leaving Narumi standing there looking out into the darkness. Mikoto sat on Naruto's left with Itachi flanking Naruto on his right, while Mihawk finished recalling how he met Naruto earlier as well as explaining his plan to Naruto, Mikoto, and Hiruzen. Mikoto and Hiruzen kept their killer intent in check so that they didn't frighten Naruto with it, but were furious with what they heard. Mikoto suddenly felt like using her extensive skills to trap a number of foolish civilians in a genjutsu. Hiruzen was equally as furious, but that was also directed at his successor and his two students. Naruto was just glad that someone would finally begin to train him to defend himself. "That sounds like quite the plan, Mihawk, but what will you do on the off chance they find you before you make it to Tetsu no Kuni?" Mikoto asked, worried about the boy that was her son in all but blood. Mihawk spared a glance for Naruto, who did not seem to be worried in the slightest, before looking back at the worried Uchiha and equally worried Itachi and Hiruzen. He was glad that Naruto had some sort of love inside this rapidly rotting village that was once the golden standard for shinobi. Mihawk leaned forward and focused back in on Mikoto, who asked the question originally. "Both Naruto and I believe that no one will find the note for at least a month or two, since we left it inside of his room, which no one beside he enters. This will give us more than enough time to enter the land of iron." Everyone nodded, since that was more than likely true. "However, on the off chance the note is discovered before then, we will only have to avoid leaf tracking teams, which won't be too difficult since I know how they operate. Minato won't risk letting the information that his own son is missing, because not only will it hurt his reputation outside of Konoha, but Iwa and Kumo will surely try and hunt Naruto down as well, and that is something he can't risk. We will be leaving soon, so I believe you two have gifts for Naruto here." Hiruzen came forward first and pulled out a scroll from his loose hanging robes and handed it to the young boy. Seeing the confusion on Naruto's face, he decided he would clarify what its contents were. "That, Naruto-kun, is a scroll that has not only the Kage-bunshin jutsu as well as a number of jutsu for each element. Mihawk-kun will teach you your element and the benefits of the Kage-bunshin. I know you'll do me proud." Hiruzen smiled when he saw the happiness flood across Naruto's features. Naruto reached forward and hugged the elder shinobi with all he could, muttering thank you into his robes over and over. After the warm moment between the boy and his surrogate grandfather, Mikoto pulled out a scroll of her own and handed it to Naruto with a motherly smile on her face. Narrakin, this scroll has a number of chakra control techniques and my personal notes for the substitution jutsu. While it is not as flashy as the other ninjutsu out there, basics can be just as effective. Mikoto lectured Naruto softly, as she knew what she was talking about since she was often called the goddess of substitution. She smiled when Naruto nodded his head enthusiastically, then she pulled out another scroll which confused Naruto. This scroll is from Shisuiken. It has all of his notes on the Shun Shinjutsu. He told me to tell you he is sorry that he had to miss your birthday and expects his Otoro to be just as good as he is with the Shunshin. Naruto smiled a megawatt smile and mentally thanked Shisui before locking Mikoto in a warm embrace, one she was all too happy to return. They held the embrace like that for a few moments, Naruto enjoying the warmth Mikoto had around her person, while Mikoto played with his black hair with a motherly affection. The small group of people also celebrated Naruto's birthday with a small cake which made Naruto tear up just a bit. Everyone had a good time as they talked and laughed, even the stoic Itachi and Mihawk cracked a few smiles during the proceedings. All in all, it was the happiest Naruto had been in years, and he knew that he wanted to preserve this. As long as he had his precious people, then all the hate and ignorance around him no longer mattered. It was close to midnight as Mihawk and Naruto walked towards the village gate wearing white cloaks with a black stripe down the arms disguising them. Mihawk suddenly pulled out a small black box and handed it to Naruto. Naruto was confused since he knew it wasn't from the man himself, so he did all he could and opened it. Inside of the box was a small chain with a little ornament hanging from the metallic chain that glimmered in the moonlight. The ornament was made of two kunais that crossed over each other at their tips. The one kunai on the left was a pure white, while the kunai on the right was a jet black. Under the kunai was a red Uzumaki swirl that was connected to the loops on the kunai handles. The initials UN were engraved into the Uzumaki swirl in black and white to match the kunais above. Naruto lifted the chain up and watched the ornament swirl in the air as he unfolded the note underneath it and read it silently. Naruto-kun, I know we haven't talked much or ever, but I really want you to have this. We haven't treated you like family, and I want to make that right. I know you have no reason to accept this, but please keep it. It would mean a lot. Narumi Uzumaki Namikaze. Naruto looked at the note, then to the ornament twirling in the air from the chain as he held it between his fingers. It was that moment that the two passed the garbage bin just outside the gate. Naruto paused as he looked between the gift and the garbage bin. Mihawk paused as well, knowing this was something Naruto needed to do. Naruto's eyes morphed into the Sharingan unknown to both he and Mihawk as he looked at the gift and the garbage one last time. He had made his choice. In the center of the village, hidden in the leaves, stood the Hokage's tower proudly in front of a mountain with the faces of 4 legendary shinobi were carved. The first face was the face of the Shodai Hokage, Hashirama Senju, who with the work of the clans in the area banded together during the time of the warring clans to create the village of Hidden Leaves. Key amongst these clans was the Uchiha clan and their most powerful member Madara Uchiha. These two powerful shinobi were opposites in almost every facet of the word, but it was those differences that created an eternal rivalry that spread into the two clans. All of that tension came to a head in one final clash between Madara and Hashirama in a place now known as the Valley of the End, which cost the legendary Uchiha his life. Sometime after that battle, which rocked the shinobi world down to its core, Hashirama chose his successor for the position of Hokage. Hashirama chose his brother Tobirama Senju to be his successor for the mantle of Hokage. Tobirama too had grown up with Hashirama and Madara in the warring clans period, and due to numerous conflicts and his own personality never was able to trust an Uchiha. It was this lack of trust that created many domestic problems between the Hidden Leaf and the Uchiha. In an effort to appease the Uchiha, Tobirama had founded a police force in Konoha and left it to the Uchiha in a way to keep their power in check. Tobirama met his end during the First Shinobi World War, where he sacrificed himself fighting Kumo's Kinkaku force. On that team that Tobirama sacrificed himself to protect and entrust the future to was a young Hiruzen Sarutobi. Hiruzen was Tobirama's prized pupil and a ninja of extraordinary caliber. It was for these very reasons that Tobirama named Hiruzen the third Hokage just before his death. Under Hiruzen's watchful eye, the hidden leaf was guided through 2 more world wars, and its Hokage grew in fame with the village itself. As Hiruzen's skills continued to advance, he had become known as the God of Shinobi, a title that had not been used since Hashirama Senju's time. Hiruzen's teaching abilities were world-class. Hiruzen taught 3 powerful shinobi how to be shinobi, and these 3 were Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru, who later became known as the Sannin for their exceptional skills. Taking the losses of the Third Shinobi World War onto his shoulders, Hiruzen decided to atone for that mistake by stepping down, much to the village advisor's disagreement. Hiruzen named Minato Namikaze, a pupil of his student Jiraiya, as the 4th Hokage due to his strong will of fire, a belief Hiruzen held in high regard. Minato had made his name in the war by eliminating scores of Iwagakure shinobi with just the Hiraishin and Rasengan. The effects of the Hiraishin earned the man the moniker of the Kiroi Senko, which was all the enemies saw before their life was no more. It was not only his power that earned him the title of Hokage, but also his infectious personality that drew people to his powerful presence. It was this man who was sitting in the seat of the Hokage behind a desk in his office with his eyes shut in a contemplative silence. Minato appeared to be a tall, fair-skinned man who did have bright, blue eyes and spiky, sunshine blonde hair. Minato had jaw-length bangs framing either side of his face. His daily attire consisted of a standard Konoha nin uniform with 2 thin bands each on both of his sleeves, a leaf green flak jacket, blue forehead protector, and blue sandals on his feet. He had also taken to wearing a long, white haori over his leaf uniform that had an orange flame pattern around the base of it. Minato was lost in thought, ignoring the ever-growing mountain of paperwork that was gathering upon his desk. It was the day that almost destroyed his entire family in a matter of moments. He learned in that day just what it meant to feel pain for something that was out of his control. All he could do was send out the village's best tracker units to search for him. He couldn't even ask other nations for help because of the implications it would have not only on Konoha but Naruto. What was odd was that the sky didn't show any signs of darkness. In fact, it was a bright and sunny day, almost as if it was glad to illuminate what they saw. That was 5 years ago. Flashback. Minato and Kushina were left speechless at what they were just told, because if it was true, then it just turned their whole world on its axis. Minato was left to stare at his sensei, Jiraiya, with a mix of disbelief and worry, but just couldn't find his voice. Kushina, on the other hand, was livid. Her hair was swaying like the Kyuubi's 9 tails. The reason was that her hair was resonating with the tremendous amount of anger welling up inside of her body. Can you repeat that, Jiraiya? I am not exactly sure I heard you correctly the first time. Jiraiya took a deep breath and with a serious face repeated himself, not quite believing what he was about to say either. I said that the prophecy has changed. It now says he with the vision shall recreate the world as he sees fit, with either peace or chaos. It was only a few days ago that he was summoned to Mount Myobokuzen by the 2 Toad Elders. When he questioned them on why he was so suddenly taken away from his research, he was whacked over the head by both Fukasaku and Shima. After that, they had taken him to the Grand Elder, where he told them about the new prophecy. Sensei, you must be kidding. We did all we did because you assured us that either Naomi-chan or Narumikan was the child of prophecy. Now you are telling us it might be Naruto. Minato was slightly worried because he was aware of how little they interacted with their son, but they needed to make sure that Narumi or Naomi were prepared for what would be pushed on their young shoulders. Minato was also glad, since this would give him time to spend with his eldest child, his son, and help him grow into a great shinobi, but also a great man like the Naruto in Jiraiya's first novel. I am not joking with you, Minato. I believe that they are speaking of Naruto in the prophecy. So with that in mind, is Naruto here at the moment? Jiraiya asked the 2 parents, because if he was, then they could start the training now. Now that Jiraiya thought about it, he didn't recall spending any time with his godson, and that actually bothered him. There was no way he was too indulged in the prophecy that he would ignore Naruto was there. If only he knew how wrong he was earlier in time, instead of now, a month after the 3 Namikaze's birthday, but it was far too late. Kushina was about to respond, but that was cut off when the door to the room they were in slammed open and an excited Naomi ran in, followed by a more calm Narumi. "Tu-chan, Kachan, can we start training today? Pretty please," Naomi all but begged her mother and father, ignoring the Toad Sage, causing him to mumble about disrespectful brats. Kushina looked to Minato, silently asking for an answer to the question posed to them. Minato nodded since this would be a good way to train all of their children, and he really wanted to see what Naruto was capable of. Yes, we will all be training together today since you will be starting the academy soon. We can't have those other clan's children get too far ahead, right? Will you be helping Jiraiya? Kushina asked, ignoring Naomi's excited shout of yes in favor of staring down the Toad Sage, telling him he better say yes or else. While Jiraiya struggled to manage a coherent response, Narumi raised an eyebrow at the fact that Kushina used the word all. Did that mean they were going to include her brother? She really hoped so, because the last time she heard her brother's name was when that man with the sword was talking at their birthday. Does that mean that Naruto-kun is going to train with us this time? Narumi tried to hide the hopeful tone in her voice, but she really wanted to spend time with her elder brother. She let a large smile cross her face when she saw both Kushina and Minato nod their heads yes. Naomi was ecstatic that she would get to train with her Nezen. For some reason, when she didn't see Naruto at the part, she wanted to train with him, or at least talk to him. Anything she was about to say was cut off when there was a poof of smoke in Jiraiya's arms, revealing the Toad contract. Well, let's go see Naruto so we can get down to business and start shaping you three into feared shinobi, Jiraiya exclaimed in a childish tone that got 3 giggles from the girls and a shake of the head from Minato, who had a fond smile on his face. The group of 5 each made their way to Naruto's door, with their own thoughts each revolving around Naruto, and each being hopeful about the encounter upcoming. Making it there, Minato was about to open the door when his hand froze the moment he came to a realization. I don't ever remember coming in here before. That can't be a good thing. Pushing back his apprehension, Minato opened the door, and the 5 people entered the room. The group simply stared at the room in a mixture of shock and disbelief, even though the room had very little to stare at. Minato and Kushina looked around at the bare room that was just barely adequate for a human being to live in. Jiraiya noticed the thick dust that seemed to settle in every corner of the room, telling him no one had been here in quite a while. Narumi and Naomi were comparing this room to theirs and suddenly felt very guilty about how their brother had to live. That was when everyone had the same exact thought, although unwillingly. Naruto is not here. Minato was the first to break from the trance everyone found themselves in at the sight of his son's room. His eyes spotted an envelope sitting on top of the dusty desk. Being curious of what it could be, he sat down in the chair and opened the letter, hoping for answers. His eyes slowly grew wider the more he read Naruto's letter. That is when he realized just how bad of a father he had been. No, Minato whispered as he read the last few paragraphs, though it was easily heard through the dead silent room. Minato's voice drew everyone over to him, and they each began to read the letter over his shoulder. Kushina brought a hand up to her mouth to try and cover the horrified gasp that threatened to escape from her mouth. Tears welled up in her eyes as she continued to read on, wishing she could stop, and as she went on she questioned how she could call herself a mother. Jiraiya was so shocked that he dropped the Toad contract as he read the letter 3 times over just to make sure his eyes weren't playing tricks on him. Naomi and Narumi were openly crying and silently speaking their brother's name. That was when the note started to break at the corners as Minato unknowingly started channeling his wind chakra in anger. Naruto's not told of all the beatings he would receive from the villagers on his birthday, and how they would call him the demon child or Kyubi. Naruto told them how he would often end up at the hospital for weeks on end as he recovered, only to be visited by Hiruzen or Mikoto while they didn't show up once. He even told them how some of the beatings went where they ranged from having his nails pulled out to stabbings and bashings. And Naruto survived because the conscious had a small amount of chakra and would heal him while unconscious. Naruto then told of how the Anbu who would watch him as they did all of the Hokage's kids would only stop the fox hunters when they were moments from killing him, which left him on the Shinigami's doorstep. He told them how the only Anbu who would prevent the beatings were Weasel and Nico. The only reason the room wasn't flooded with enough killer intent for the whole village to feel was because of the children's presence. Then came the last paragraph of the letter, which broke the hearts of each of the family members. It told them that Naruto had left of his own accord to find somewhere safe for him to live, and he was not sure if he would ever come back to the place he called a hellhole. How could this happen? How can I call myself a mother? Kushina asked, openly sobbing as she thought about what Naruto had gone through. Minato quickly stood up and wrapped his wife in a hug as she sobbed in his chest. Minato too questioned how he could call himself a father when a father was supposed to protect his child, something he didn't do. Narumi and Naomi were embracing each other, crying their eyes out as Jiraiya tried and failed to calm them down. It was official, this was the worst day of the Namikaze Uzumaki's lives, yet the sun continued to shine, shining for Naruto's liberation. Flashback end. Minato was broken from his thoughts when he heard a knock on the door to the Hokage's office. "Come in," Minato ordered, watching the door open and his wife, daughters, student, and Sasuke and Sakura entered the room. Kushina gave her husband a bright smile, one mimicked by Naomi and Narumi, though to a lesser degree. Kakashi gave his sensei his usual eye smile, while reaching for his Aika book, which was penned by Minato's sensei Jiraiya. "Mission report?" Minato asked, even though it was a command and he already knew the results of the mission since it was nothing more than menial labor. "I don't see how cleaning a training ground is a mission," Sasuke said aloud, crossing his arms and closing his eyes, though Minato ignored the arrogant Uchiha in favor of looking at Kushina and Kakashi. Actually, it seems that the only one who responded to Sasuke was Sakura, who said so cool, practically drooling over the Uchiha. Kushina and Kakashi both nodded, telling their Hokage that the mission was successful and there were no complications. Minato was about to reach for the D mission folder, and Naomi caught this. She couldn't handle taking another D-rank mission that, and Sasuke's infinite arrogance, was literally driving her insane. "Tusan, can you please give us a C-rank mission? I just can't take these chores anymore." Minato saw that each of the genin gave small nods, agreeing with his daughter's words, well aside from Sakura, who looked unsure about the idea. Minato saw Kushina and Kakashi nod their heads, believing they were ready for the slight upgrade to their workload. Letting out a sigh, Minato grabbed the C mission folder and skimmed through it before pulling out a request and handing it to Kushina, who stepped up to accept the details. "Your mission is to escort a bridge builder from the Land of Waves back home and protect him as he builds the bridge connecting the island to the mainland. You will meet your client in 2 hours in front of the main gates." Dismissed. Naomi whooped in joy and quickly took Narumi by the hand and led them off, with Kushina following, laughing at her daughters. Kakashi quickly left in a shunshin the minute the word dismissed was said, leaving Sasuke to walk with his fangirl hot on his heels. Minato let out a sigh and wondered if he had any normal shinobi in his service, as if on cue he heard shouts of youth from behind the doors. A figure wrapped in a gray cloak was walking calmly through a path leading to the village hidden in the leaves. The figure wondered why there would be a path that would lead into a village that was supposed to be hidden. Just as quick as the question came, so did an answer, and that answer was arrogance. Over the years, Konoha has become incredibly powerful with the Yellow Flash, god of shinobi, 2 of the Sannin, and shinobi such as Kakashi and Guy. They became the most powerful village. Titles like such often led to overblown egos, and Konoha was no exception. "Why am I coming back to this place?" Then images of a few people flooded the figure's mind, along with iconic places such as the Hokage Monument and Tower, along with the business district, came to thought. Right, I wish for the village to stand despite its unsavory characters. I sound like Madara did before he fled from the village. I guess he and I are more alike than I thought, Naruto thought with an amused smirk, as his eyes flashed red under the hood he had covering his face from peering eyes. Naruto may have had no love for its people, but Konoha was still his home, and he would not let the likes of Kumo or Iwa try and destroy it. Itachi Sensei, I must be getting into my mind more than I like, but is that a bad thing? Naruto asked himself. Since leaving all those years ago, Naruto learned many things from Mihawk, and Itachi, his favorite, was that stoic appearance. It was like second nature now to Naruto, and he quite liked it that way. Now people couldn't read him well aside from his senseis. Seeing the large gates of Konoha passing by him as he walked, Naruto let his 3-tomo Sharingan fade, leaving cold blue eyes hidden by the shadow of his hood. Naruto decided he would keep his Uchiha blood secret until he determined that it was the right time to reveal it. Naruto caught sight of something that made Naruto wonder if Kami herself just loved to see how much she could make him miserable. Coming his way was Team 7 with Naomi and Narumi talking with each other, clearly excited about something. Naruto then recognized Itachi's younger brother being followed by a fangirl while brooding. Bringing up the rear was Kakashi and his so-called mother. Naruto didn't even flinch as he walked by Sasuke, who he was a few inches taller than thanks to a growth spurt due to Mihawk's dieting. Or at least he tried to walk by him, because at the last moment the Uchiha bumped into Naruto's shoulder. "Watch where you are going, you loser," Sasuke exclaimed as he turned around to glare at the unknown figure's back. Sasuke's angry shout stopped the rest of Team 7, who were now looking between the man in gray and Sasuke, wondering what they should do. Naruto just kept on walking. He had more important things to do than play with a spoiled child. "Hey, didn't you hear me?" Sasuke demanded, obviously not ready to let the issue drop. Kakashi was about to intervene to stop his new student from doing anything stupid. Sasuke acted first, though caught up to Naruto's retreating form. Sasuke planned on teaching whoever it was under that cloak that they do not disrespect an Uchiha. With that, he gripped Naruto's shoulder, stopping his movement. "Looks like you need to be taught a lesson, idiot," Sasuke said rather arrogantly while smirking at the back of Naruto's head. Years of abuse made Naruto really dislike any form of contact that Naruto did not allow, and Sasuke was about to learn that the hard way. In an instant, Naruto had gripped Sasuke's wrist and flipped him over his shoulder, driving him into the ground. Without so much as a glance back, Naruto continued to walk away, leaving Sasuke to seethe on the dirt road. Managing to scramble to his feet, Sasuke glared at Naruto with black eyes filled with hatred for the person he had just met. "That's it, no one disrespects an Uchiha like that. We are the strongest clan in history. I'll kill you," Sasuke bellowed out in anger and rushed at Naruto's back with his fist cocked back. Naruto, who heard the shout, didn't react until Sasuke was a few paces away. That was when Naruto spun around and nailed Sasuke in the chest with a powerful kick that sent him back to his team. Sasuke was saved by Kakashi, who caught him, sparing him any more pain from a hard landing he was sure to take. Team 7 was checking to see if Sasuke was alright. Naruto continued to walk away from them, continuing on as if the encounter never happened. "That was Itachi-sensei's brother. I am not very impressed, but I guess he did get him to accept hatred. You were lucky, Uchiha. Normally I would have killed you for that, but that would make me getting into the village next to impossible, since he is one of the 2 remaining Uchiha." Deciding to save time and get the meeting with quicker, Naruto vanished in a murder of crows, leaving only a black feather. Team 7 turned to look at where the figure in gray was standing, only to see that he was no longer there, and all that was left was a black feather. Kushina and Kakashi were staring at the oddly familiar feather with interest. Naomi and Narumi were wondering just who that was, because from height he seemed to be around their age. Tazuna was laughing at the brooding Uchiha for getting his kicked while wondering if he could hire the figure in gray. Sasuke thought he had scared him off, something Sakura verbalized, getting silent groans from everyone else. With the encounter with Naruto behind them, they left for Nami no Kuni with one thought: who was that? Minato was discussing with his predecessor Hiruzen Sarutobi about recent events that happened in Kirigakure. Apparently a woman named Mei Terumi had united the bloodline users into a rebel army to fight Yagura, the Yondaime Mizukage, who was exterminating the bloodline users. They had come to Konoha to ask for assistance 3 years ago, and after a long council meeting, Minato had to inform Mei that the Leaf could not assist. It was the most recent news was what was unsettling to the Kage and former Kage. It appears that Mei was able to find most of Kiri's 7 ninja swordsmen, and that was the last report they had received. Both Hiruzen and Minato knew that if the rebels had won the war, then the Leaf had a potentially new enemy, which was something they did not need, seeing as IWA was still less than neutral to their presence. Having another potential relationship like Konoha did with IWA, with Kiri, was something that Konoha couldn't afford. Even with Tsuna's aid, if Konoha was to go to war, they would have to face IWA, then Kiri would no doubt assist, not to mention what the prideful Raikage would do. Even as strong as Konoha is, it could not withstand a multi-front war with 2 villages with a chance of a third. Any more discussion was interrupted by a murder of crows flocking together in the center of the Hokage's office. Hiruzen and Minato's eyes widened because they knew only one person who used crows, and that was Konoha's second most wanted criminal, Itachi Uchiha. Konoha must have become very lax if I am able to enter the Hokage's office just like that. A calm voice came from under the gray cloak that stepped from the crows. Hiruzen and Minato were confused now, since this was clearly not Itachi, but this also made them weary since they didn't notice the man until the crows suddenly burst into the room. "Nico, while I appreciate what you have done for me earlier in life, it would be better for your health if you remove the sword from my neck," Naruto said calmly, but the threat was not missed by the shinobi in the room. His words were so calm it actually made the ANBU behind him, who was indeed Nico, flinch slightly. Naruto was about to react when the blade was not moved, but that was stopped when he saw his father suddenly get to his feet. Naruto could clearly see that he was not happy with what was happening right in front of your eyes. "What is the meaning of this? Who sent you here?" Minato demanded, his voice full of the authority that made him feared as a powerful shinobi. He was not happy that someone could so easily stroll into his village through the detection barrier, nonetheless show up right in front of his eyes. Naruto didn't even flinch at the tone of the powerful shinobi in front of him, since he knew all he needed to do was flick the hood of his cloak down. Naruto's face showed nothing but cold indifference as he stared down what could be called the most powerful man in the world. "I guess you wouldn't recognize my voice. It has been 5 years since I have been here and much longer since we had any kind of conversation," Naruto mused as he reached up and pulled his hood off of his head. Minato fell back into his seat when he saw Naruto's face. It was more narrowed out than he remembered from when he was younger. His black hair had grown longer and had almost dropped over his right eye. His eyes that were once warm when looking at him now felt like small icebergs. It hurt his heart knowing that it was his negligence that caused his son to be like that. "And Naruto, what are you doing here?" Minato asked in shock at seeing the sight of his son who he had not seen in 5 years. Minato always thought that if Naruto came back it would be because he was forced, not because he came here willingly. Naruto could see that Hiruzen was equally surprised considering his pipe was resting on the floor in front of his feet. Naruto couldn't see Nico's face, but there was a very small trembling in the blade that only he could see. As much as he enjoyed watching Minato going through emotional turmoil, he was growing tired of being in the man's presence. "I came back to Konoha to become a shinobi," Naruto stated simply as he moved the blade of Yugao from the nape of his neck. In action, the purple-haired Anbu didn't fight. Naruto kept an impassive gaze as he watched Minato's face become hopeful. Naruto decided he would crush that hope right now before it grew any larger. "I chose Konoha because it was the most logical option, seeing as Kyumo would try to experiment on my body to see if I had a Kekkei Genkai because of your actions. Iwa would certainly kill me the moment they found of our relation, even if it is only because of blood. I do not know enough about Kiri to make an informed decision because of their foolish war. Suna would just hand me back to you because of the alliance, and their own lack of power to hold me. Do not think that I came here because of any other reason than that it was the most logical." Naruto finished his reasoning coolly, making Minato's face drop in sadness. Hiruzen, seeing that the younger Kage was in no shape to respond, decided to intervene on his behalf. "While I am glad you are back, I would like to know where you think you should be classified as," Hiruzen asked, trying to fish information on the enigma known as Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Naruto was smiling inwardly at the man who was like a grandfather to him, but he still would not let anything out unless he deemed it necessary. Turning his head, Naruto kept an impassive look on his face, but Hiruzen could see the smallest spark of warmth in there that widened the smile already on his face. "I believe I should be ranked as a genin like all those my age," Naruto stated simply as he looked at Hiruzen, then to Minato, who had regained himself. He could see the confusion on their faces, no doubt expecting him to try and boast. Naruto called them foolish silently for such thinking. Information could lead to any shinobi's death, and he was by no means an exception. "I have not been trained in this village, so promoting me to anything else would create animosity between myself and the other shinobi. Or they will see it as Minato giving me a promotion and not myself earning it." Naruto clarified his reasoning, managing to do it without admitting he was related to the Namikaze. Minato was saddened that Naruto refused to call him father, but if half of what that letter said was true, he had no right to ask Naruto to do so. Getting Naruto to be a shinobi wouldn't be too hard considering he was his son, and hopefully this could be the start to trying to build a relationship. "That can be managed, Naruto, but I need to ask you to take part in a spar so I can see your capabilities. This is my one requirement," Minato stated firmly as he watched Naruto's hand reach behind his back, where took note of the handle that was covered by a guard and hand a small charm hanging from it. "That is acceptable," Naruto said, simply standing there with his arms crossed over his chest and an impassive gaze. Naruto had already assumed he would need to do something along those lines to gain entrance into the village. Knowing that his opponent would most likely be a jounin, he revealed his crows and he would show his kenjutsu prowess. "Before that, do you know of any apartments available at the moment?" Naruto inquired, not once breaking from that calm, almost condescending tone of voice. Minato was about to protest the decision and state that his son should live in the Namikaze compound. Naruto cut off the predictable response with a raised hand. Since I am to be a shinobi, I also am considered an adult, and you have no right to decide where I live. My question remains. Minato silently cursed those long-standing rules since he knew Naruto was right about that, and there was nothing he could do. I believe there is an empty floor in a complex in the red light district, Minato said evenly, trying to see how Naruto would react to living in such a shady place. Minato sighed when Naruto didn't even raise an eyebrow to the information presented to him. I believe Nico here can escort you to the building since Hiruzen, and I have business we need to discuss privately. Naruto, report to Training Ground 7 in 5 hours for your test. Naruto didn't even nod his head. He turned to Yugao and looked at her expectantly for a few moments before she realized he was ready to go. With that, the two shinobi left the room. Yugao and Naruto had been walking in what was an awkward silence for Yugao since she had quite a few questions for Naruto. It had been years since she had seen him as a young boy, and no, here he was completely different. She was only 14 during that time, so the ANBU had her watch over the village pariah. She wanted to know where he went for so long, and just how much he changed. How are you, Naruto? She finally managed to say something and cursed herself for something so stupid. It only got worse when she saw Naruto's eyebrow rise when she asked her question. I am well, Naruto replied, clearly not interested in putting too much effort into the conversation. Yugao half expected that kind of answer if Naruto's interaction with the Hokage was any indication. Sparing a glance at her one-time charge, Yugao decided to try again to get Naruto to engage in a conversation. Why did you leave Naruto? Yugao asked, more curious than anything else. After all, he was the Hokage's son. He could have had anything he wanted and he would have got it. Yugao was glad to see Naruto had not reacted negatively to her question. He actually kept walking with the same facial expression, making her wonder if he was even listening to her. I left Konoha to learn how to protect myself, Naruto answered, telling the truth since that was his reason. It was true that Itachi and Yugao did protect him when he was younger, but that was then. Now he could only rely on himself for protection, and to do that he needed to get stronger, which he did. Naruto had not fooled himself into believing that he was almighty. No, Naruto knew he still had much more growing to do. His eyes alone had much more potential than they were letting on. Naruto made sure he would make use of this potential to further his ambitions. The two were now firmly in the red light district, and were seemingly oblivious to their surroundings. Well, Yugao was, because she was busy trying to figure out the new Naruto walking with her. Naruto was highly aware of the people around them going about their daily lives, but he chose to ignore them. Naruto knew that Yugao wanted to learn more about him and decided to help her out in what would seem to be an indirect way. The Hokage will no doubt come to see my test. If anyone had a grudge against him, this would be the perfect time to act, no matter how foolish it would be to do so. Yugao turned her head to look at Naruto to see what he meant by those words, but his face gave away nothing. What did he mean by that? Could he be planning to attack Yondaime-sama? No, he knows that no one in this village would do so, not to mention Hokage-sama's power is only rivaled by Lord Third. Wait, he is telling me that I could watch over Hokage-sama as well as see his battle. Thank you, Naruto. That was when the two shinobi arrived at the door to Naruto's flat. Turning to face Yugao with his door to the back, Naruto looked into the slit eyes on the mask. Thank you, Yugao. Naruto thanked her before entering his new home. Yugao stood there in front of the door in shock, staring at nothing as she tried to make sense of what just happened. Not once during his time with the Hokage did he say thank you. And this new Naruto doesn't seem to say things just to say it. Yugao left in a leaf Shunshin to return to her duty of guarding the Hokage, but there was a small smile on her facial features behind her mask. The time limit given had passed for Naruto to take his test, and still Naruto was sitting on the center training post in Training Ground 7. It was only a few hours from dusk, yet Naruto's body language only showed calm despite his opponent seeming to be late. Naruto decided to review his time back in Konoha, which was rather pleasant. No one bothered him inside of his new flat. Even the ANBU, who were no doubt watching him, were keeping their wits to themselves. On his way to the training ground, he did not receive any glares. He even got a few smiles, mostly from children, but there were a few from some of the adults. Naruto knew he was only on the receiving end of those smiles because they did not know who he was. Naruto had shed his gray traveling cloak since he was now in the village. Underneath, he had a gray zip-up vest with a hood and short sleeves. The vest held an interesting design of 9 magatama around the neckline, and they were crimson in color. Naruto wore black ANBU pants with short boots that went up to his ankles. The reason for that was many times in battle Mihawk stepped on his toes, calling him an idiot for having such a glaring opening. His hands were clad with black fingerless gloves to protect his hands, a common practice for swordsmen. It seems that they are here, Naruto thought, since he could feel a chakra signature in the forest in front of him. He recognized the signature as Yugao's signature. He had become quite accustomed to it since she was the only person he had extensive exposure to. If Yugao is here, then the Yondaime and the old man are probably near her. No surprise I can't feel their signatures. They aren't Hokages for a reason, Naruto concluded as he continued to sit in a meditative position atop the training post. That was when a second chakra signature flared up in the woods behind him for a moment. That was when a fireball came from the same part of the woods that Naruto felt the chakra burst coming from. The fireball quickly engulfed Naruto's seated position and expanded slightly, swallowing up the entire training post. The ball of flames shrouded the poof of smoke that emerged when the fireball contacted Naruto. Each set of eyes in the premises were trained on the scorched post, where there were no sign of Naruto, or even a training post. The real Naruto, who was sitting in the forest, stealthily made his way to a tree behind where his clone's sitting and saw a shinobi sitting there crouched and focused on the field. "Yes, I am still here," Naruto whispered softly, making the shinobi in front of him tense since he had not detected Naruto's presence. Before he was even able to react, Naruto kicked him from his perch and knocked him into the open training field, where he dropped down into soon after. Naruto saw that his opponent was a tall man with dark, spiky hair, and he was wearing red-rimmed sunglasses, which Naruto found useless considering the sun was going to go down soon. The man was wearing the standard leaf jounin garb with a leaf headband that was tilted to the left slightly. Naruto decided he would get straight to the point since he didn't feel like wasting any more of his time with this useless test. Naruto reached behind him and pulled out his blade that was hidden by his cloak earlier. The blade was a finely crafted katana with the handle wrapped in a black fabric that had diamonds cut into the fabric, showing the white handle underneath. The handle also had a hand guard encompassing it on each side to prevent damaged hands. That also let the charm be clipped onto, so it was resting on the back of his hands as he gripped the handle of his blade. The blade was made of chakra-conductive metal, where the top of the blade was a jet black. The bottom of the blade was a snow-white color, and where they had met it was a shade of gray, much like the coat of a wolf. This was the blade known as Twilight, and it was a gift from both Mifune and Mihawk. Naruto watched with an impassive face as the wind blew his hood down, revealing his cold blue eyes to the special jounin Aoba. That was when he saw Aoba pull free his own katana that was completely black from blade to the hilt. While intrigued by the black blade, Naruto moved to engage his opponent, bringing Twilight down in a slashing motion which was blocked by Aoba. Aoba tried to push back on Naruto, but found that countered as Naruto let his katana slide lower on the black blade and forced it up. Planning on forcing his advantage, Naruto flipped Twilight horizontally and went to stab Aoba, but the sunglasses-wearing ninja was already out of his reach. Hokage-sama's son is very skilled with his blade. Perhaps I should have not challenged him with my own blade. Aoba rushed forward and re-engaged the younger raven-haired boy in another kenjutsu exchange. The two blades clashed with each other over and over, sparks showering from each point of contact. Both Aoba and Naruto knew that Naruto was getting the better of the exchange and was forcing Aoba back. When Aoba made a mistake in lunging too far with one of his sword swipes, Naruto scored a hit by cutting Aoba across the right arm, making Aoba hiss in pain. Aoba jumped back and looked at Naruto for a moment to see what seemed to be a bored look on his face. Taking his actions as accommodating, Aoba glanced down to examine his new wound, and he was pleased to see that it was a light cut. It looks like I won't be able to best him in a kenjutsu duel, so why not add a bit on ninjutsu? He hasn't even performed the hand sign yet. Aoba observed, not believing that Naruto could do ninjutsu, but what he wasn't aware of was that Naruto just did not wish for that information to be revealed. Meanwhile, in the woods, standing and watching the fight, were Hiruzen and Minato, with Yugao hiding in a tree near them, also watching Naruto's performance. Each of the three Konoha shinobi were amazed at Naruto's skill, especially Yugao, who specialized with a blade. Naruto-kun's skill with that katana is exceptional, Hiruzen commented with no small amount of pride in the young man in front of him. If he had to guess, Naruto's skill was high Chunin to low Jounin level. He wondered just who could have taught him such skills. The only people he could think of would have been the samurai of Tetsu no Kuni. Of course there was Kumo, but they would no doubt kill Naruto if he asked to be trained by them since he was Minato's son. Yes, his sword skills are very well refined, though he hasn't shown any ninjutsu or genjutsu skills to accompany his kenjutsu. However, he is keeping Aoba in a close-quarters combat scenario to prevent him from using his ninjutsu while pressing his advantage in the field of kenjutsu. Minato concluded his analysis, and could say that was at least a Chunin level of thought. Minato was sure that Naruto could be Chunin if he wanted to, because he could also see the way he carried himself was that of someone who had seen battle. Minato just wondered how much he had seen. Yugao was silently watching as Naruto skillfully countered each of his opponent's attacks and scored more than his share of glancing blows. She could tell Naruto was holding back since it was nothing more than a spar. Amazing, he is doing all of this with just the base kenjutsu style. He has yet to use any techniques and he has a clear advantage, Yugao thought, watching as Naruto kept Aoba on the defensive. Yugao made a note to have a duel with Naruto when she had some off time to see just how skilled he was, because it was clear to her, an experienced swordswoman, that Naruto was holding back. Yes, Naruto-kun is very combat aware to keep Aoba from using whatever advantages he may have over him. He would make an excellent Chunin, but he seems to be content with being a Genin. I guess that doesn't matter though, since the Chunin exams are coming up in a few months. Hiruzen replied with a small smile, since he couldn't wait to see who he considered to be a grandson excel like he knew he would. Hiruzen knew Naruto was hiding his skills from them. Even if it was to your own village, deception was still a shinobi's most powerful weapon. Yes, and we will be hosting these exams. Minato confirmed Hiruzen's statement with a nod of his head as his thoughts drifted to the Chunin exams. The blonde Kage wondered how many teams would be sent to Konoha from the other villages. It would make sense for them to showcase their shinobi to show they were stronger than the other villages' shinobi. He made note to expand the stadium they had built already to accommodate what he assumed would be one of the largest exams in history. Minato sighed softly when he imagined the paperwork he would have to do. There has to be some way to defeat the monster known as paperwork, Minato thought desperately. This kid is ridiculous. If this wasn't just a spar, I would have been dead many times over. I guess it wasn't wise to challenge him with a sword, since it has been a while since I used my black blade. Planting his hand in the dirt, Aoba used his leg to sweep Naruto's legs out from under him. Naruto reacted late, and was clipped in the ankle, making him stumble midair, which Aoba used to his advantage by slamming a fist into his torso. There, that was the space I needed. Now I can use my jutsu. Aoba held the hand sign after going through a small chain of signs, scattering thousand crows technique. Aoba pointed his finger, and hundreds of crows flocked around Naruto, cawing and flapping their wings, covering Naruto's vision impaired with loose feathers. Naruto remained calm as he stared at the crows closely as Aoba continued to blind his younger opponent. This will make my black blade strikes next to impossible to see, let alone dodge, Aoba thought confidently as he tightened his grip on the black hilt of his black blade. Aoba paused momentarily as we watched Naruto remain stationary as he stared at his flock of crows. Why isn't he trying to escape, or at least bat the crows away? Ah, now it makes sense. These are not crows but blackbirds, Naruto stated plainly as he turned to where Aoba was last. He couldn't see Aoba, but if he could, he would see the shocked visage on his face. Naruto was curious as to why Aoba called them crows, since only Itachi and himself had signed the crow contract. Upon closer examination of these so-called crows, Naruto could see that they were actually smaller than a crow and had a colorful patch under their wings. Naruto could only assume he used the word crow to strike more fear into opponents, since crows were known to be scavengers, an interesting ploy indeed. I will show you crows, Naruto stated plainly, making a few hand signs with one hand, and crows started to emerge from his body and chased away the smaller black birds. That was the useful aspect of the crows. The smaller summons were actually murders of crows and not a singular one, and required small amounts of chakra to call. Naruto stood there calmly as his crows chased off the blackbirds, leaving black feathers to fall around him, leaving him in a ring of black feathers. Naruto stared impassively, his eyes devoid of emotion, as Aoba stared with wide eyes behind his sunglasses. No one had ever been able to see through that technique before. Naruto did just that but also disabled it. I have had enough of this, Naruto stated to himself as he started to channel his chakra through twilight, but instead of glowing blue like the usual form chakra would take, it was gray with small flickers of red. He didn't want to reveal too much, but he needed to end this before he was forced to reveal a few more of his tricks. Naruto readied his hand, and with a single flourish of his hand the chakra shot from the length of his blade and expanded out horizontally. Aoba, Minato, Hiruzen, and Yugao all were looking at the wave of gray chakra with the small red flickers with surprise. That is the technique of the samurai. Kami no Ken no my severance from the material world. Naruto's technique went unheard to everyone else simply because he said it in a low whisper as to keep it away from their ears. Not that Aoba would have heard it anyways, as he was too busy trying to avoid the massive wave of chakra. Aoba's only option was to fall onto his back because he didn't even have time to drop on his hands and knees. That was what Naruto needed. Rushing forward, Naruto pointed twilight at Aoba's neck with the same cold, empty look in his cerulean eyes. Submit, Naruto said. It wasn't even a demand since he knew the shinobi was not foolish enough to say no. Aoba simply nodded his head, swallowing a lump in his throat. Nodding his head approvingly, Naruto removed his blade away and strapped it back onto his back and looked up. He saw Minato, Hiruzen and Yugao each standing on a tree stump looking at Naruto. Those 3 trees were not the only ones cut clean through. The cut went through 10 trees in both directions, and at least 3 rows back into the forest. Naruto waited patiently as the observers walked forward and Minato dismissed Aoba. Naruto could see the pride in Minato's eyes, and he wondered how the man could feel any pride for someone he cast away like a piece of used paper. Naruto, what was that technique? Minato asked, hopefully being able to get Naruto to tell him something concrete. Naruto had not shown anything except crows and a skill with his katana, and he just needed to know more. Maybe all that time with Kushina and his daughters was starting to change his personality. Naruto let one of his eyebrows raise. Did he really expect Naruto to just give away his information? He may have hidden it with curiosity, but he was still fishing for information, Naruto's information. Naruto personally had no plans to share anything with this man, especially this man. It was a chakra flow technique. Naruto stated what they all obviously saw. This way he was able to be vague and say he answered the question. Yugao watched as Naruto spoke with Hiruzen before going to Minato and receiving his leaf headband, which was placed on a black fabric. She was amazed by the cutting strength behind Naruto's attack and knew that he had his own style of kenjutsu. All of this only made her want to duel with the young shinobi even more than before. She briefly entertained the idea of asking Naruto about his style, but killed that idea since this Naruto was much more guarded than the one from his childhood years. But maybe if she got to spend more time with him, then she could try to ask. Maybe not. I will take my leave now, Naruto stated simply when he received no disagreement. Naruto's body dissembled into a murder of crows, each cawing loudly as they flew away. The 2 Kage and 1 Anbu stood there in the field at dusk as a small wind blew across the field, staring at the spot Naruto was occupying. Each went their own way, their duties for the day done with, and many differing things to think about. Some of these thoughts revolved around Naruto's return and some did not. All that was certain was that things were bound to get exciting in the Hidden Leaf Village. Naruto was laying on his new bed inside of his new home and was simply staring at the ceiling, his blue eyes still containing that cold glimmer. Even though this new home was just as empty as his old room when he lived with the Namikazes, he felt much more at home. Naruto was resting with his hands folded behind his head and Twilight leaning on the bed just in case one of those foolish villages tried anything against him. Naruto's eyes glanced at the door to his bedroom, but what he saw was all of the doors in his new home. I need to brush up on my Fuinjutsu, Naruto reminded himself, since he had slacked off on his training in that art. The first step in my plan is complete. I now have a village to protect me from the other villages. Now all I need to do is grow here in Konoha while keeping an eye out for internal threats. Then once I have the power I desire, I will begin to exterminate these threats. For Konoha, Naruto said mentally before falling asleep, Itachi's influence showing clearly in Naruto's thoughts. Information. Kami no Ken no my divine sword dance. Naruto's kenjutsu style created during his time in Tetsu no Kuni under the tutelage of Mihawk and Mifune, who made the sword to accommodate the style. The style uses the samurai saber technique as inspiration. Naruto uses his own chakra to manipulate the affects of his attacks, such as shape and spatial effects. The business sector of Konohagakure no Sato was alive and bustling with people, each trying to find the best deals or a place to eat lunch. It was a place that was alive until the dead of night with those who were searching for something. People were chatting and exchanging money for goods with happy smiles on their face when they found their desired objects, or a disheartened expression when their search was fruitless. The people were going through an age of economic prosperity thanks to the accomplishments of their village's Kage. Konoha's economy was the classic case of a trickle-down effect. Minato Namikaze was a shinobi of extraordinary caliber with an even greater legend pinned with his name. It was these accomplishments that brought the minor shinobi villages to Konoha's doorstep for the creation economic trading between the various parties. With those trading agreements, the influx of goods came in more products, and the demand for Konoha products to bring to new markets. This gave people new creature comforts to purchase in hopes to impress people, or just live comfortably. One thing was certain though, and that was there were happy smiles on the faces of the civilians. The atmosphere around the village, hidden in the leaves, could be called jovial. There was a pair of ice-cold blue eyes that could see through all of this happiness to see the true nature of the people around him. Under this facade of glee and celebration, Naruto could see what was truly lurking there. It was greed and malice, just like Naruto was subjugated to all those years ago when things weren't going so well. That was when the village was recovering, and their hate drew them to the nine-tailed demon fox, or in their eyes Naruto. Even the children at that time who knew not of the pain caused by the fox ignored him and left him in isolation. It was for that blind hatred and abandonment that Naruto had lost all attachment to people of the village aside from a select few. One visible eye staring impassively as he walked, and another hidden by the black hair hanging over the eye. Naruto watched these people go on with their insignificant lives. Naruto's figure most have gave him an air of professionalism, since the adults would give him smiles as he walked by, which he ignored. The only time Naruto showed any form of reaction was when a group of children around the age of 7 or 8 stopped in front of him and gave him bright smiles and small waves. That was the time Naruto nodded to them with the faintest of smiles on his lips. Those children had not done anything to contribute to his misery, and for that reason he would acknowledge them. People who had yet to be corrupted by hate have been protected from the world by their upbringing. Now Naruto didn't believe that meant they were sheltered. No, that just meant they had yet to see the true evil that the world could dish out. Natural death, while sad, did not fill a person with hate. Only the actions of another could create such strong feelings in a human being. If someone lost a loved one or thing thanks to the actions of another or a group, their heart would no doubt bear hatred. Naruto just happened to channel his hatred for the betterment of what he held dear instead of the path of the avenger. Naruto continued on his stroll through the village's business sector, silently making his way to his original destination. Naruto, after about 20 more minutes of walking at a relaxed pace, made his way into the Uchiha district. Naruto gazed around and pictured hundreds of Uchiha littering the streets, some nervous about their coup and others living innocently. Naruto could only imagine what the former Uchiha clan were thinking when they thought they could get away with something like a revolt. I can tell you what they were thinking. They thought that their eyes made them a force of nature. It was that thought that made Itachi kill them all, for their foolishness. The Uchiha would have had to first mobilize enough assets to defeat Minato, and as much as Naruto disliked admitting that alone would be challenging, then they would have had to deal with Hiruzen as well before they took over the seat of Hokage. Even if they managed to deal with those two Kage, then the Uchiha would have to battle with the other clans in the village to assume control of Konoha. That would be no simple task for another hidden village, let alone one clan. Itachi's way of killing the Uchiha was the most peaceful way of settling the issue of the Uchiha uprising. If he did not, then the village would have been tossed into a civil war, killing many civilians. Fools so easily blinded by power were not meant to wield power, and that included the former Uchiha clan. Naruto also grouped Minato into that grouping, since he allowed the civilian and council push around him, the Hokage around, when they were meant to be simple advisors. Naruto found it amusing that out all of the Hokage that he respected was the Senju brothers Hashirama and Tobirama. Naruto respected their power, however he by no means liked the two legendary Senju. It was impossible for a Senju and an Uchiha to like each other, but respecting each other was another story altogether. Naruto walked right up to a large clan house and knocked on the door and waited patiently for a response. Naruto allowed his focus to drift to the numerous empty buildings that were towering over the area, casting shadows of the past on the hollow ground. Naruto internally mused how long it would take for the council to try and raise the Uchiha district just so they could make more money. No, that would be the reason they would give, but in truth they would do that to try and wipe away the stain the massacre left on the village. Perception is reality. The soft sound of light, approaching footsteps knocked Naruto from his internal observations on the village. Naruto only had to wait a few more moments for the door he knocked on to open up. The person who had opened the door was Mikoto Uchiha, one of the few people Naruto would say that he cared for in the village. Mikoto had not changed much since Naruto had left. She still had long black hair and black eyes. To Naruto she appeared to have gotten shorter, but that was thanks to the growing he went through during his time with Mihawk and Itachi. Naruto's normally frozen blue eyes held an affectionate warmth in them as Mikoto gasped before pulling the younger Ravenet into a motherly hug. Naruto slowly wrapped his arms around the Uchiha woman, returning the embrace. Itachi had told him that he was allowed to spare both his mother and his younger brother. At first he was to just spare Sasuke, but it seems that Kushina was able to convince her husband to keep her best friend, Mikoto, alive. Naruto was glad to see the woman who was his mother in all facets of the word during his childhood, unlike Kushina. Naruto found himself being pulled into the house without a word being said, not that he minded Mikoto brining him in. Soon Naruto and Mikoto were sitting on a couch in what appeared to be the living room. The smile Mikoto was giving Naruto made his heart warm with happiness and joy. Hanging around with two stoic, serious men like Itachi and Mihawk will often cool if not freeze one's emotions. Naruto took no time in returning Mikoto's warm smile with a smaller yet equally affectionate smile. "When did you get back?" Narukin Mikoto asked, barely able to contain her excitement from seeing her surrogate son. "I just got back yesterday, but I couldn't visit you because I had some business to take care of with the Hokage," Naruto replied in an even tone, since thinking about Minato often drained him of any positive emotions he may have been feeling at the time. He planned on visiting Mikoto if he had the time, but yesterday just did not allow it. He thought of sending a Kage Bunshin but decided he wanted to talk with Mikoto in person. Using a clone to talk with Mikoto felt just wrong, but that was only because of who it was. Naruto would have no problem with sending a shadow clone to address Minato or the council. "That is okay, I am just glad you are finally back," Mikoto chirped happily, giving Naruto's hand a gentle squeeze. In reality, she was more than glad. She was elated that Naruto had finally come back. Her relationship with Sasuke had all but deteriorated as more time passed after the massacre. Sasuke was so set in getting stronger that he dismissed Mikoto's credentials, beveling she was nothing more than a housewife. Apparently Sasuke was not aware that Mikoto was on par with Kushina in terms of strength, and those two were plenty capable jounin. "How was your training?" Mikoto asked excitedly. Naruto went on to tell her how he and Mihawk left the village that night and started their journey for the Land of Iron. Naruto told Mikoto how Naruto had taken his first life in the Land of Lightning when he and Mihawk had come across a settlement of bandits. Naruto told her how Mihawk said that killing someone under his eye now was a better choice than having him doing it later and freezing up, something Mikoto agreed with. Naruto then recalled his time in Tetsu no Kuni and how he created his own sword style under the eye of Mifune and Mihawk. Naruto then told Mikoto about how he had 3 natural affinities, which were fire, wind, and lightning. Naruto remembered how Mihawk and Itachi referenced those 3 affinities as the 3 affinities of destruction. Naruto told Mikoto how while improving his wind-style ninjutsu with Mihawk he learned his fire styles with Itachi. Mifune and Mihawk assisted in accompanying those styles with his swordplay. Mikoto's smile grew wider hearing Naruto's admission. Getting over the initial surprise of Naruto having 3 affinities, she offered to help Naruto train his lightning affinity. This brought a small smile to Naruto's face, since he was just going to grab some scrolls to train, but learning from someone with more experience was always far better than reading it from a scroll. "Come Narukin, now you are going to show me just how far you have come with the scrolls Sure Sway and I gave you," Mikoto said happily as she pulled Naruto from the house to the wide backyard behind the house. Naruto took a moment to admire the natural beauty that the trees and flowers seemed to give to the training area. There was even a small pond at the far end of the field for what Naruto guessed was water-style ninjutsu. Naruto blinked away the daze he found himself pulled into by the nature around him. Naruto focused in on Mikoto, who was standing across from them. "Well then, show me how far you have come, Naruken." Naruto did not visibly react to Mikoto's rather obvious attempt to get under his skin with that insulting suffix. Instead of showing agitation, Naruto brought his hand over one of the crimson magatama on his zip-up vest. There was a small plume of smoke before Naruto found himself with a handful of shuriken. Naruto chucked the 5 black stars at Mikoto. Not waiting for results, he held a hand sign and vanished in thin air. Mikoto avoided the spinning stars of death easily and glanced to her left where Naruto had reappeared. Naruto quickly threw more shuriken at Mikoto. Mikoto, who did not have her own ninja tools, could only avoid the projectiles instead of deflecting them. Mikoto caught a small flash of smoke from the corner of her eye and turned her head to look at the smoke to see that it was already gone and Naruto was there. Mikoto reacted with a kick aimed at Naruto's chest, which Naruto could not avoid thanks to his attempt to rise up before the kick was thrown at him. Naruto crossed his arms in front of his chest, using his forearms to absorb the impact behind the kick. Naruto slid back from the force of the kick and started to shake the tingling in his arms away. "Your Shunshin Jutsu was nearly flawless, but your substitution jutsu could use some work. Now Naruken, show me your elemental." Mikoto's request was cut short when both she and Naruto focused in on the puff of smoke that erupted in between the two. When the smoke blew away, it revealed an ANBU crouched facing Naruto. The ANBU was dressed in the standard ANBU attire with a bear mask. Naruto just knew he wasn't about to like what this man had to say to him. "Namikaze-sama, Hokage-sama requires your presence immediately." Bear's tone was calm yet insistent. Naruto frowned for a moment before it washed away under a look of boredom that took over Naruto's face. He wondered if Minato already had something for him to do already. Naruto glanced over to Mikoto to see her nodding her head, understanding that he had to go for the time being. Naruto, not even bothering to acknowledge the ANBU, held a hand sign and vanished in a Shunshin. The bear-masked ANBU quickly followed suit in a hidden leaf Shunshin to return to his duties. Mikoto sighed softly before walking back into her home. Naruto formed from a murder of crows inside of the Hokage's office, alerting the man who was his father to his presence. Naruto figured just showing up in a Shunshin would end poorly for him, since it was unwise to startle a Kage. Once fully formed, Naruto found himself looking at a smiling Minato Namikaze. Naruto just stared at the man with an impassive gaze as he brought his arms up and crossed them over his chest. Naruto was irritated that he had to leave one of his favorite people for one he had nothing positive to say about. Minato's smile faltered, realizing that Naruto was not going to say a word until addressed. "I have received a request for backup from Team 7. It would appear that their mission to escort Tazuna, the bridge builder to the Land of Waves, has taken a turn for the worst. On the way to Nami no Kuni, they were attacked by 3 swordsmen of the Hidden Mist. Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the Hidden Mist, a former missing nin from Kirigakure who wields the Kubikiri Bocho, but was reported to be wearing a Kiri headband without the cut across the Kiri insignia. Accompanying Zabuza was Kushimaru Kuriere. We were under the impression Kushimaru had fled from Kiri, but that seems to not be the case. There is also another, a boy around your age who has pointed teeth and blue hair. There is no intel on this boy." Minato relayed what Kushina and Kakashi had given him into a report. "Normally I would send another Genin team to back up Team 7, however the other teams are already out doing missions in the fields. That is why I will be sending you to Nami no Kuni alone." Minato added to see if Naruto would show anything similar to an outward reaction, but Naruto did not even bat an eyelash. Naruto continued to stare at Minato with one cold eye visible, and the other hidden by his black hair. "I am safe in assuming that you know where Nami no Kuni is." Naruto just nodded his head slowly to his Kage's question. Minato waved his hand, dismissing Naruto, who took his leave immediately via a Shunshin since he had all he needed. Naruto was walking through the streets of the Nami no Kuni, and it reminded him of how he was forced to live when he was a child in Konoha. Most of the food the vendors were displaying were rotten or on the verge of rotting. All of the buildings looked like they were on their last leg, and one good, strong wind would knock over the buildings. Each of the towns Naruto had passed on the way looked much like this one. Naruto found a rather modest-looking pub and figured that he could find what he was looking for there. Opening the doors, Naruto took note of the oppressive atmosphere lingering in the pub that engulfed him as he stepped in. Naruto silently listened to the quiet conversations that were going on around the bar. Naruto continued to hear the name Gato in each of the conversations he listened in on. Naruto went through all the information he had learned during his travels with Mihawk and Itachi. Gato is the business tycoon and shipping magnate. Founded Gato Company and is apparently occupying land of Great River along with Nami no Kuni. Possible that he hired the Kiri shinobi to remove Tazuna, whose bridge would break his monopoly. Yeah, apparently Tazuna-san has hired some shinobi so that he can finish the bridge. That was why he had all those extra people with him. I am just glad he lives at the far east end of the village, that way I'll be safe if they get caught in a shinobi battle. That last exclamation got a round of cheers from the other patrons. A few of them didn't look too happy with what the unnamed man said. This told Naruto that these people were probably bridge workers under Tazuna's lead. Naruto moved from his spot leaning near the entrance, and walked out of the bar since he heard all he needed. It only took Naruto around 10 minutes to get to the end of the small village, and that was just because he took his time. Naruto came up to a rather modest 2-story home and knocked on the door. It only took a few moments for someone to open the door and greet Naruto. The person who greeted Naruto was a woman with long navy blue hair and a pink shirt, and was looking at Naruto questioningly. "Hello, my name is Tsunami. May I ask why you are here and who you are?" Tsunami asked politely, as she kept the door partially open, shielding part of her body. "Hello, my name is Naruto, and I am here as the reinforcements that the team called for." Naruto explained in his normal bored tone, but there was a politeness mixed in there with the usual monotone. Naruto watched with bored, blue eyes as he saw Tsunami's naturally guarded posture visibly relax and her smile brightened. Tsunami stepped to the side and let the door open for Naruto to make his way into the home. Naruto stepped inside of the margin with his hood over his head. He could hear the loud chatter of his sisters and mother in the other room with a more masculine voice laughing. He assumed that was the bridge builder, Tazuna, since Kakashi was not quite as scruffy. "My, they sent you all alone. You're no older than the others with Kakashi-san and Kushina-san," Tsunami said with no small amount of surprise that Naruto alone was the reinforcing force Konoha had sent. Naruto chose not to reply to Tsunami's statement, since it was clear the woman was ignorant to the shinobi world. In the world of the shinobi there were children younger than Naruto, and stronger than Kakashi, who was a higher-ranked shinobi in his own right. That wasn't the woman's fault though, since Nami no Kuni had no shinobi force stationed within its borders. The only thing they had resembling a military was the daimyo's personal samurai guard. Naruto and Tsunami walked into what appeared to be the dining room, where everyone seated took notice of the two. Tsunami took her seat again, and Naruto simply stood behind an empty seat with his hood hiding his face. Team 7 plus Tazuna were all staring at Naruto curiously, no doubt wondering who it was. Narumi noticed the handle of Twilight, and the charm hanging from the grip. Narumi's hands flew over her mouth as she gasped at the same time Naruto pulled his hood off of his head. Kushina, Narumi, Naomi, and Kakashi all had wide eyes as they gazed at the different yet familiar face of Naruto. Sochi Kushina cried out happily as unshed tears pooled in her eyes looking at her son who she had not seen in 5 years. She got up from her seat ready to hug her son, but that was stopped by Naruto, who held his hand up. Naruto's cold look got even colder when he looked at his so-called family. His frigid visage made Sakura, Tazuna, and Sasuke all shudder, while those he was looking at froze in place. Kushina brought her hand up over her heart, which suddenly started to clutch in pain. It felt like she was being stabbed by the blade on her son's back. It felt horrible. "Do not even bother trying to attempt touching me, because I will react violently to any non-allowed physical contact. Also, I am not your son, Kushina, you lost that right long ago," Naruto said coolly as he stared at Kushina with eyes as cold as steel. Kushina felt like she would break down in tears right then and there. Naomi and Narumi were not in any better of a state. Sakura, Tsunami, and Tazuna looked between Naruto and the others, confusion evident on their respective faces. Sasuke was just sitting there silently thinking about the confrontation with the swordsman, not caring in the slightest about the drama before him. Kakashi looked at the Namikaze Uzumaki females and could see they were near their breaking point, and hoped he could say something to stop this tense confrontation. Now Naruto, I am sure you don't mean that. After all, Kushina-sama is your mother and Naomi and Narumi are your sisters, Kakashi explained with a lazy drawl as he looked up from his Ika book right at the ravenet. He too was glad that his sensei's son had returned, but what he was saying was just not something you say to your mother. Naruto's cold azure eyes stared at the mask-wearing Jounin with cold indifference. It matters not. This is not the place to discuss personal matters, we are on a mission. However, do not tell me what I mean, Scarecrow. Naruto warned the smut-reading shinobi with a cool tone that made the man cringe ever so slightly. I have been briefed on the mission already, so tell me what your plan is, Naruto continued on a more neutral tone, getting over the irritation speaking with Kushina caused him. Naruto had not even bothered to sit down at the table, which could be seen as rude but not to Naruto. No, he saw it as unnecessary. Kakashi closed the book once he saw Kushina staring at him murderously, and with a nervous chuckle he turned to face Naruto. I am going to work with Sasuke and Sakura in tree walking, Kakashi stated, simply getting curious glances from the two genin mentioned, wondering just what he meant. Naruto had to fight back a scoff when he heard Kakashi say that the pink-haired girl and the self-proclaimed great Uchiha had yet to master the simple tree-walking exercise. Just what had the academy and Kakashi been teaching these shinobi, and using that word was a stretch at best. Naruto turned his cool, penetrative gaze on his two sisters who had yet to say a word since he had arrived. Naomi and Narumi couldn't help but squirm under the brother's chilling gaze, and what was worst, he wasn't even glaring, it was just a stare. Narumi initially thought that Naruto had forgiven them when she saw he had her gift, but that quickly changed when Naruto spoke to their mother. Naomi had hoped to speak to Naruto, but one look at her elder brother had stopped her dead in her tracks. Naruto turned his gaze to his Jounin superior, Kushina, which let his sisters release the breath they were not aware they were holding. Kushina stared back at Naruto with a forlorn expression for an uncomfortable amount of time to everyone else besides the mother and son. Kushina, snapping out of her somber trance, looked at her daughters, then to her son, and smiles faintly. I am going to teach Narumikin and Naomi-chan how to stay on the water's surface even when it gets stormy. You're welcome to join us. Kushina offered hopefully, a hope shared by her two daughters who were all looking at the same person hopefully. Naruto looked at his family, and was not surprised that they were further ahead than the other two. However, they were still behind him. I have no need for that training. I will watch the house, Naruto stated plainly, and turned to leave the room when someone voiced their opinion. Even if you are the Hokage's son, you are still weak. That's why you act like you already know this stuff. Just so you can show off. Team 7's Uchiha stated ignorantly as he stared at Naruto's back with a smirk on his face. Naomi and Narumi were openly glaring at the Uchiha for insulting their brother like he just did. Sakura was glancing between the two worryingly because while she was Sasuke's #1 supporter, Naruto was the Hokage's son, and something about Naruto that made Sakura very nervous. Naruto slowly turned around to regard the Sasuke who was still smirking arrogantly at him. Then it happened, a quick flash of amusement invaded Naruto's usual cold, blue stare. Oh, is that so? Then perhaps I can beat you down just like I did yesterday, Naruto suggested with his own smirk, as he watched the Uchiha's face twist with agitation. Naruto was amused to see how easy it was to anger what he saw as a spoiled brat. He no doubt remembered how easily Naruto defeated him. Naruto thought that Sasuke was about to leap over the table and try again, but fortunately for Sasuke, Kakashi acted first this time and calmed him down. Naruto turned back around and left the house, jumping onto the roof and adopting a meditative stance as the other genin went out to perform their chakra control exercises. Kakashi had taken Sakura and Sasuke out to a forest that are behind the house and stopped allowing Sakura and Sasuke to inspect their training ground. There were very tall trees in front of them with no branches sprouting from the sides. They didn't have any more time to admire the trees because Kakashi had thrown a kunai in front of each of them. Kakashi, feeling their questioning looks, looked up from his smut and explained, "Here is what you need to do to complete this exercise." Kakashi then slowly walked towards the tree, then without even breaking stride he walked straight up the tree and paused about halfway up the trunk. To complete this exercise you must apply the correct amount of chakra to the bottoms of your feet. Use those kunai to mark your progress. Kakashi dropped from the tree he glued himself to and walked over to a smaller tree behind Sasuke and Sakura to supervise their training. Sakura leaned down and picked up the ninja tool, looking at the tree with an unsure look. Sasuke snatched up his kunai and without a second thought rushed at the tree. Sasuke had taken a few steps up 3 before he was blown off the tree, but not before he slashed the bark. Sasuke got off of his back with a growl as he glared at the tree as if it was a living human who had just insulted him, a rather comical sight. That is what happens when you use too much chakra, Sasuke. Came Kakashi's lazy drawl, which Sasuke didn't even bother to respond to. Picking himself up, Sasuke attacked the tree once more, this time with Kakashi's advice in mind. Sasuke's momentum carried him past his original mark, and Sasuke thought he would make it this time. That was when his feet slipped off the bark, and as he plummeted down he managed to cut the bark with the kunai before it was too late. And that is what happens when you do not put enough chakra under your feet. Again came Kakashi's advice, which held both a lecturing and amused tone, seeing the Uchiha fall on his head. Sasuke grunted as he righted himself and shot Sakura a glance, expecting her to be in a similar state. Sasuke's black eyes widened when he saw Sakura sitting on a rather high branch up near the foliage with her tongue sticking out and looking very proud of herself. Sasuke snarled to himself and tightened the grip on the handle of the kunai. He was not happy that Sakura was ahead of him, an Uchiha. That thought alone was just infuriating. How could he kill Itachi if he couldn't even beat the pink-haired Kunoichi in tree climbing? He couldn't. Kakashi had a more logical perspective from his branch. No surprise in that one. Her folder said she was incredibly smart, book-wise, so this simple of a theory wouldn't be too difficult for her to grasp. It also helps that she doesn't have the largest chakra reserves. She'd make a fine medic Nin. Kakashi, I smiled, looking at Sakura, who was trying to not let Sasuke catch her giggling at his falling on his face. Kakashi leaned back against the tree he was occupying with a tranquil smile. I should have passed the Genin team long ago. This is pretty nice, Kakashi thought as he went back to reading his smut shamelessly as the 2 genin under his tutelage continued to work. Kushina, Naomi and Narumi had taken their training to a more suitable location down near the sea, each lost in their thoughts at the moment. The waves came and went with fluctuations in the lengths of their crests fitting of the geographic space named Nami no Kuni. The only objects providing a break in the constant waves were the supports that dove into the water holding up what had been built of the bridge. The 3 Kunoichi had not even made it into the water, showing just how distracted they were from their son brother's rather sudden reappearance in their lives. Narumi was the first of the 3 who was able to break away from the mental trance Naruto's appearance had put them in. Narumi, looking at her sister and mother, smiled sadly since it seemed that they were in similar states. Coughing loudly to get their attention, which it did, Narumi gave them each a small smile. Come on, Naomi-chan, Kazan, the sooner that we get this training done, the sooner we can speak with Naruto-kun, or try to at least. Narumi decided to keep the last part to herself, seeing the hopeful expressions on Kushina's and Naomi's faces so that she didn't crush their hopes. Naomi shot her sister a beaming smile, totally agreeing with her words and ready to finish their training. Naomi turned to face her smiling mother with fists clenched and eyes burning with determination. Kushina smiled, proud of both her daughters, Narumi for her words and Naomi for her determination. Kushina channeled some chakra to her feet and launched into the air, with the chakra enhancing her jump. Landing on the crest of a wave, Kushina evenly distributed the chakra throughout the wave's falling motion, allowing her to stay stuck to the surface. Waiting for the wave to hit the bank, Kushina jumped back in between her 2 daughters. Now you have been taught that to stick to a calm surface you need to channel a consistent amount of chakra to your feet, however an active surface is another matter. If you try that while riding a wave, you will be swallowed up by the wave. To stay atop a living wave, you must apply different amounts of chakra to the soles of your feet, some places more concentrated, others not so much. Each wave is different than the last, and the only way to learn is through experience. So off you go. Kushina waved off her 2 students just as a large wave crashed down and created a light spray. Taking a few moments to appraise the waves rolling in towards them, the sisters looked at each other and nodded their heads and jumped onto the waves. They managed to balance themselves to the surface of the wave and for a few moments, as the wave swelled down, but then the 2 Kunoichi sunk into the wave. Kushina would have been surprised if they had managed to do it on the first try because of the difficulty of this exercise. Naomi and Narumi climbed back onto the surface and waited for the next wave to roll in. The quicker they got this done, the sooner they could try to make amends. Naruto was sitting silently on the roof of the house with his eyes closed as his body set in a meditative position. He created a few shadow clones to observe the house while he meditated in the peace he was gifted. Naruto enjoyed meditation since it gave him reprieve from the daily burdens of shinobi life. He also learned that it helped fine-tune chakra control. It was these two things that had him thanking Mifune for forcing him to meditate. He could hear everything from the animals rustling through the woods to the waves crashing down on the shores. That was when his attention was pulled elsewhere, when he felt a small tug in his mind, curious as to why he allowed himself to be pulled into. Waiting until the tugging sensation subsided, Naruto slowly opened his eyes and looked at his new surroundings. The first thing he noticed was that his feet were wet, but the first thing he saw were solid walls bathed in a faint orange light. Naruto arched his eyebrow as he looked around, taking note of the large pipes that were hanging overhead. Naruto had his suspicions to where he was, but knew of only one way to make sure he was right. With his goal in mind, Naruto began to wander in the only direction available to him, and that was forward. Naruto continued to walk into the endless darkness, but with each step more of the way was illuminated for him, but just the space around him. Naruto thought this to be his mindscape, which was a place in all living beings, yet only few utilized the space. People like Jinchuriki, or even the Yamanaka, who used the mindscape as a base of operation when scanning the mind for information during interrogations. The strange thing was that Itachi and Naruto had tried to access the mindscape. Something prevented them from doing so, most likely the conscience of the Kyuubi. Finally, after an uncertain amount of time spent walking, Naruto found himself standing in the center of a large opening where all the pipes seemed to come to an end. In front of Naruto stood a line of thick steel bars that converged on a tag that had the kanji for seal on it. Naruto looked into the darkness behind the bars with his cool, blue eyes. Naruto continued waiting until a growl that rippled the water around his feet. The only effect the growl had on Naruto was that it blew his black hair back. Once the growl ended, a figure came from the shadows. Not to his surprise, Naruto was greeted by the sight of a large fox lying on his front paws, staring at him with red, slitted eyes. Naruto looked over the mass of large orange fur and took note of how the kitsune's torso was similar to that of a human, and he even had thumbs. The fox had large ears and what appeared to be whisker marks. Naruto knew this was the Kyuubi, but yet the being of chakra didn't have 9 tails, he had half of a single tail. Naruto simply stared at the legendary creature, not showing the slightest ounce of fear. My jailer graces me with his presence. So to what do I owe this honor? The Kyuubi's voice was deep like a baritone, and reverberated off the walls, creating a dark echo. Naruto simply stared at the sarcastic Biju with an arched brow. Certainly this creature did not take him for a fool. Naruto narrowed his eyes and glared at the beast coldly. He didn't not like being thought of as a fool. The Kyuubi meanwhile was slightly surprised at the chilling gaze the human before him was displaying. By no means did it instill fear into him, but it was something to see that look in the eyes of a human. Do not play with me, Kyuubi, you will find out that I am not one for games. We both know that I do not hold any of your chakra and that you have been keeping me from entering this place. Naruto retorted, unafraid of the beast said to be able to create tsunamis with a simple flick of a tail, his voice holding the slightest amount of irritation. Kyuubi or not, Naruto would not be manipulated by anyone or anything. Naruto would answer his own calls at the times he saw fit to do so. The Kyuubi just growled darkly to the human's rather flippant response to him. The Kyuubi: that is right, I remember that night very well. Your father and mother took my chakra from me and sealed them into those 2 girls while leaving you with nothing but my conscience. Quite the parental thing to do for their eldest son, the Kyuubi snarled, showing off his glowing white fang to Naruto, who stood there motionlessly, his eyes closed. The Kyuubi was mentally preparing himself for Naruto to lose his cool facade and scream at him. Naruto opened his eyes, revealing to the tailed beast his Sharingan blazing angrily at the beast. The Kyuubi's eyes burned with rage, remembering all the times he was hypnotized by those cursed eyes. You will never call that man or that woman my parents ever again, or there will be severe consequences. Do you understand me? Kyuubi. Naruto's voice was dark and dripping with animosity for the two people that the Kyuubi called his parents. Naruto did not care if this was the legendary Nine Tails, he would not stand for such. Kyuubi decided he would avoid antagonizing Naruto on that matter any further because with his lack of chakra he would no doubt be especially susceptible to a genjutsu. That didn't mean he would not continue to belittle and insult the human before his eyes. Finally, you show those wretched eyes to me now. Take a few steps and so I can gouge out those eyes and crush them under my paw, the Kyuubi demanded of Naruto with an angry bellow that made the water splash up. Naruto brought his arms over his chest and crossed them, staring at the Kyuubi with an impassive Sharingan gaze that reminded the Kyuubi of Madara. The Kyuubi had his tails, they would no doubt be swaying about angrily as he stared down at Naruto. Naruto, of course, did not listen to the Kyuubi's demand, not that he thought the Kyuubi could hurt him without his chakra. So you know of my Sharingan? I guess that would mean you would have looked into my memories. Naruto said more to himself than to the Kyuubi, who must have realized it since he didn't respond. Naruto let his red eyes drift to where he could see a half-orange, bushy tail resting on the floor, which gave him a question to be asked. Why are your tails missing? The question was blunt with no sign of an ulterior motive. The Kyuubi could not sense anything negative coming from the Sharingan wielder. Not greed, hatred, or even ambition, it was like looking into a void. The Kyuubi, of course, went through the memories of the young human and was impressed with what he viewed. Despite all of the rather cruel acts that the other humans had performed on him, Naruto had not blamed his presence for the human's actions. Naruto thought nothing of him, there was nothing negative nor positive. There was only respect for what he was capable of, nothing more. What the Kyuubi did uncover was that Naruto had no love for most of the village, his family included. The Kyuubi didn't respect Naruto, not by a long shot, but he would answer the question since the boy was able to see through the world's hatred towards him. Even someone like the Yondaime Hokage, who your people hail as a legend, cannot completely suppress me. Only a god or the sage could have done that. I can feel the chakra slowly resonating in my consciousness. I assume it is because of your proximity to the two sources of my chakra. The Kyuubi started with a prideful tone that faded to nothing more than an informative one by the end. The Kyuubi could only speculate as to what was happening since he had never had his yin and yang chakra sealed separately, let alone his consciousness in a third body. Naruto nodded his head, taking the explanation as fact since it did make sense that chakra as potent as the Kyuubi's would somehow find its way back. Naruto knew he would need help in the future, and what better ally than the Kyuubi? Now he wasn't foolish enough to believe the being of malice and destruction would trust him right away, but he could take a step in the right direction. I see, that makes sense. Is there anything I can do for you for answering my question? Naruto offered, but held his hand up when he saw the Kyuubi about to give his request. Aside from unsealing you, because then you'd fade without the correct amount of chakra to sustain yourself, that, and I am not sure how this seal works yet. The Kyuubi, of course, did not expect Naruto to be so logical when it came to his unsealing. He thought Naruto would have just yelled about how it would kill him. Showing nothing except the usual snarl, the Kyuubi stared at Naruto. I grow tired of going through your memories, and I'd like to see the outside world once more. If you tear off a piece of the tag, I will be able to see what you see, hear what you hear, and feel what you feel to an extent. It will also create a communication channel between us, the Kyuubi said while staring at the shinobi with discerning eyes, trying to pick up on emotions that weren't there. Naruto stared back into the red eyes of the Kyuubi with his own red eyes for what may have seemed like an eternity to anyone who wasn't the Kyuubi or Naruto. Naruto let his arms drop to his sides and took a few purposeful strides forward, where a cyclone of water raised him up to the sealed tag. Pinching his fingers around the top left corner of the tag with a swift pull, he ripped off the edge. There was a brief flash of pain that made Naruto fall to the floor, hunched over in pain. Naruto righted himself once the pain subsided, looking at the Kyuubi, his red eyes fading back to ice-cold blue. Naruto brushed the one bang hanging over his eye away, and it just fell back to its original position over his blue eye. Naruto felt a slight propelling in his mind and assumed that his time in the mindscape was coming to an end. Thank you for the knowledge, Kyuubi. I will be seeing you. Naruto waved over his shoulder as he retreated into a hallway he had come from, ignoring the Kyuubi's rather loud scoff. With his pseudo-container gone, the Kyuubi retreated back into the darkness and let himself be claimed by sleep once more, since the connection took a lot from him thanks to his lack of chakra. It had been 3 days since Naruto had opened up his senses to the Kyuubi, and he had yet to hear from his tenant. Naruto guessed he was simply taking a nap since he seemed kind of lazy to the young shinobi. There had been a number of interesting moments that had happened over the last 3 days. One of those moments was when he was confronted by Team 7 seeking answers which he did not give them. Sasuke was not happy with Naruto's choice and tried to force the answers out of him, but Sasuke quickly found himself unconscious on the ground. The other incident he found amusing was when his so-called family tried to convince him to eat dinner with them. Naruto immediately declined and walked away from the group of people that gathered around the table. That was when Tsunami's brat Inari had come downstairs and so surely proclaimed that they knew nothing of misery and pain. Naruto was sick of listening to the spoiled brat, and released a wave of potent killer intent to silence the child. With that, Naruto left the house and didn't return until everyone was sound asleep, since he didn't want to deal with conversation. Naruto was following behind Team 7 and Tazuna as they walked towards the bridge Tazuna was creating that happened to be the source of these problems. Kakashi had insisted that Naruto follow his orders and join the formation that he had come up with. Naruto refused, reminding him that his mission was to provide combat support, while their mission was to protect the bridge builder. Kakashi had not bothered him with his foolish attempts to pull rank since that altercation. Naruto took note of how the mist started to thicken as they walked closer to the bridge. That was when there was a rush of information hit Naruto. A shadow clone he left to guard the family, since it would be logical for someone to try something against Tazuna's family. Naruto's assumption proved to be true when 2 wannabe samurai cut through the front door of the home. Naruto's clone watched from behind the samurai as they threatened Inari and moved to take Tsunami hostage. That was when his clone struck, cutting the tan samurai's hand clean off, making the man howl in pain. The clone was feeling kind, so he retreated outside so that the woman and child would not be forced to watch 2 deaths. The samurai quickly followed him, and the clone used his twilight and quickly drove the katana through the pale man's heart and removed the head of the tan man. Naruto burnt the 2 bodies before he went to check on his hostess and her son. Tsunami and Inari both thanked the clone and hugged him, and that was when the clone dispelled, leaving them alone. "What is the meaning of this?" Tazuna's gruff voice cried in shock, knocking Naruto out of his momentary introspection. Naruto watched indifferently as Tazuna kneeled down by one of the injured workers, who muttered something Naruto did not care to hear. Kakashi had revealed his Sharingan, and Kushina and readied herself as well. The untrained genin all started to look around nervously while Naruto calmly readied twilight. Naruto knew this would be a good test of his swordsmanship. A duel with any of the ninja swordsmen of the Hidden Mist would be a good test to see how far he had come. Naruto and the rest of the Konoha Nin watched as 4 figures came to in the mist. Arrogant fools, Naruto thought, seeing their intent for a head-on collision. Well, Sharingan no Kakashi, it seems you were off about my death. Those eyes can't read the future, but I can tell you your future. That future is a death at the end of my executioner's blade. A man with no eyebrows and his mouth covered in white bandaging stated firmly, pointing his huge blade at Kakashi. Naruto knew from the sword alone that this man was the demon of the Hidden Mist, Zabuza Momochi. Kakashi, of course, did not respond to the swordsman, and just stared at the man. A second figure came out of the mist, standing to Zabuza's right. The man had blonde hair much like Narumi's hair, and his face was hidden by a Kirigakure hunter shinobi mask. The man was twirling a large needle menacingly, but everyone on the bridge knew that was no simple needle. This long sword was known as the Nuabari, or the sewing needle. It was called such because of the thread in the base of the sword that was used to stitch together what the blade would pierce. Kushimaru was currently smirking as he stared at Kushina from behind his mask. "I owe you for that punch you gave me last time, bitch," Kushimaru finished in a shrill laughing that made Kushina frown at the maniacal blonde swordsman. The next people to emerge were around Naruto's and the rest of the genins, aged 1 boy and the other a girl. The boy was at Naruto's height, and had short blue hair and blue eyes placed behind a pair of glasses connected to ear protectors. He had blue pinstripes on his shirt, and camouflage pants with a holster carrying a large blade. Naruto knew the blade. He made sure to know all famous blades. That sword was known as Hiramikari, often called a twin sword because of its shape. It had 2 indentations at the base, creating a cross guard, and was also extremely heavy. The hole in top of the blade would emanate the user's chakra, coating the blade, allowing the chakra to take any shape. The girl next to him did not draw any attention aside from the fact that she was in the full Kiri Hunter Nin suit. "Naruto, can you handle the boy with the blue hair?" Kakashi asked quietly, still staring at Zabuza, who was smirking behind his bandaging. Naruto did not reply. He was too busy eyeing the blue-haired boy who was squirming under Naruto's intense gaze. Kushina was about to repeat the question when suddenly there was a burst of air that blew from where Naruto was standing. Chojuro's eyes widened when he felt pain in his stomach and was launched to the far end of the bridge. No one was ready for Naruto's sudden burst of speed. Zabuza looked at Kakashi, his brow ridge raised as he looked at the Hatake. Kakashi looked over behind Zabuza's shoulder where Naruto and the blue-haired boy were before they were surrounded by the mist. Kakashi focused back in on his opponent, his Sharingan ready to trace any slight movements. "It doesn't matter who he is, Zabuza. All that matters is that he is your enemy," Kakashi replied tersely as he waited for his opponent to strike. Zabuza frowned at Kakashi's answer, clearly intrigued by the kid who managed to get so close to him so quickly. Zabuza wasn't too worried since he would have his fun with the brat after he dealt with the fabled Sharingan wielder. Kushina, who had to leap back to avoid having the Nobari so through her foot, turned her attention to her genin students. Seeing how on edge they were, she shot them a disarming smile. "You four protect the bridge builder, we will take care of these men." Kushina's voice, though comforting, was a firm order to her students. With her piece said, Kushina launched towards Kushimaru before the mist got too thick and hampered her vision. From within the mist there numerous occasions where metal contacting metal rang out. Kushina managed to stop a few of Kushimaru's forward jabs with the standard leaf tanto. Zabuza brought his executioner's blade down on Kakashi to cleave the leaf jounin in 2 pieces, but only found the ground of the bridge. "Haku!" Zabuza barked out as Kakashi tried to put space between him and Zabuza. Not a moment later the girl who was dressed as a Kiri Hunter Nin appeared beside the shinobi. "I want you to take care of those kids, then kill the bridge builder, do you understand?" The young kunoichi uttered a quick affirmative, and shined to go do battle with the genin. Kakashi wanted to help his students, but Zabuza was having none of it as he used the reach of the large cleaver to his advantage. Kakashi could feel the bridge material splinter under the force behind Zabuza's attack, making the masked shinobi glad he evaded. Copying the chain of hand seals, Zabuza was going through. Both shinobi launched a dragon of water at each other. The dragons were evenly matched, and when they collided they soaked Zabuza and Kakashi. Rushing forward again, Zabuza charged in with his cleaver overhead and ready to strike. Fortunately, Kakashi struck first by stabbing Zabuza in the heart just before the giant sword contacted his shoulder. Zabuza turned into a puddle of water upon being stabbed by Kakashi's kunai. A water clone. Kushina too was having a difficult time with the blonde swordsman from the village hidden in the mist. Kushina was trying to land a punch to the thin shinobi using her super strength that she learned from Tsunade, though not quite at the Sanin's level. However, Kushimaru was excellent at avoiding strikes, something he needed to be able to do since his weapon provided little defense. Kushina looked to the truly evil shinobi's hands and found them empty. However, she could not think on this development because there was something digging into her shins. Looking down, the female Uzumaki spotted a shimmer break the veil of mist that surrounded the 2 ninja. Choto Ninpo Earth Spider Sewing. Kushina created a shadow clone and had it throw her into the air, avoiding having her knees being removed from her shins. Kushina watched as Kushimaru pulled on the thread and returned the needle to his grip for his next attack. Kushina dropped down but landed on top of the thin threads that Kushimaru spread throughout the space. "Man, I haven't been out in the field in so long. It is a good thing that I had Minato help me with my wind ninjutsu." Kushina went through her hand seals at a very impressive pace for one who had not been on active duty for some time. Wind release, great breakthrough. Kushina's jutsu slammed into the blonde-haired swordsman and knocked him back, but also cleared up the battlefield, effectively dispersing the mist. Kakashi joined back up with Kushina, both of which were slightly winded for different reasons. Zabuza and Kushimaru also took this time to regroup with each other. Zabuza had cuts on his arms and across his torso from a few close exchanges with Kakashi's kunai. Kushimaru's mask was chipped at the jaw line, revealing the man's angular chin. The wind jutsu Kushina had used had blown some thread that was loose up and cut Kushimaru. The battle had taken its toll on each combatant. Kushina, seeing a new opponent, charged at the eyebrow deficient shinobi with her fists reared back to strike. Zabuza was questioning the sanity of the red-haired woman until something told him to block the punch. Trusting his instinct, the Kiri shinobi flipped his blade and blocked Kushina's chakra-enhanced strike with the flat side of his executioner's blade. Zabuza felt the impact being absorbed by his forearms, and felt that his blade would crack when it started to show small spiderweb-like cracks. However, the blade was crafted well enough to avoid from being shattered, but another few strikes like that would surely destroy the blade. That was just ridiculous. If I let the blade take any more hits like that one, I won't be able to fix the blade with blood. That only works when there is a piece of the weapon connected to the handle. Pieces on the ground just won't do, Zabuza ranted in his mind as he grunted, swinging his blade at Kushina, forcing her to retreat momentarily. Creating 3 Mizubunshin, Zabuza gave them silent orders to attack Kushina in a triangular formation. Zabuza watched on as his 3 water clones each converged on Kushina simultaneously, with their replicas of the executioner's blade rose overhead and ready to strike. Water released spinning water. Just before the Zabuza clones could carve into her flesh, Kushina began to spin in a clockwise motion with her hand open. Not a moment later, small specks of water spun with her, steadily growing until the water formed a dome that was spinning and compact. The water quickly swallowed up the clones and the would-be assault. The water continued to rotate violently until it dispersed, revealing a glaring Kushina. Thank goodness that Hitamakin taught me the basic principles of the Kaiten before she passed on. Kushina thought with a sense of relief as she pulled a few kunai from the holster on her thigh and coated them with water. Choto Ninpo falling threads. Kakashi watched as the black wire-like thread from the Nuabari fell towards him with great speed while covering a great area. Kakashi went through signs with his hands, and suddenly a small concentrated ball of fire spewed out from under his mask and at the incoming threading. Unfortunately, the ball of fire could not burn through the chakra-enhanced thread, which led to the scarecrow shinobi being sliced by the wires. Kushimaru let out a high-pitched giggle, seeing the shocked look in the eyes of the Sharingan shinobi. Kushimaru's celebrating was cut short as he received a strong shock. Surprised, Kushimaru looked to see an electrical current traveling down the metal thread, showing that Kakashi was actually a lightning clone. A right Unkage Bunshin, Kushimaru thought in surprise and clenched teeth, the electrical current affecting his slender body. The strong current was making each of his muscles contract, temporarily paralyzing the blonde shinobi. Kakashi, who was sticking to the underside of the bridge until his clone was destroyed. Kakashi, not wanting to waste any time, gripped his wrist and started forming his personal assassination jutsu, the lightning bolt cutter, Raikiri. Walking up to the immobile man, Kakashi brought his arm back and thrusted the lightning bolt cutter forward towards the man's heart. Just before Kakashi could kill the shinobi, Kakashi had to leap back as the Nuabari cut just under his Sharingan eye. Kakashi wiped the blood from under his eye as he looked at Kushimaru, who was giggling like a crazy man. Kakashi saw a thread tied around his wrist, and that the sewing needle was coming out of the bridge. Kakashi pieced together that he must have grounded the current, and thus was allowed to move. Kakashi felt another presence appear next to him to see a slightly bleeding and winded Kushina. Zabuza joined Kushimaru, repairing his blade with his own blood as Kushimaru cut the thread around his wrist with the Nuabari. The battle had taken its toll on each of the Jounin. The 4 Jounin-level shinobi each looked over at the dome of ice mirrors with different expressions. Narumi, Naomi, and Sasuke were each looking at a different mirror of ice, but the sight was the same: a girl dressed as a hunter nin. The Leaf Genin could not keep up with the speed Haku showcased by transferring mirrors. Each of the Leaf Shinobi tried to hit the Kiri Hayatan user with their ninja tools with no success. They decided to leave Sakura out to protect Tazuna since she couldn't provide much in the way of help. Naomi tried to make a break to escape the dome of mirrors so she could attack from the outside of the structure. Haku quickly transported to the mirror closest to Naomi and punched the fellow Kunoichi in the gut before tossing her back to the other genin of Team 7. There is no escape, Konoha Shinobi. I do not wish to kill you, so I request that you hand over the bridge builder, and you will leave with your lives. The feminine voice seemed to come from each direction, only making the threat all the more real. Sasuke was mentally questioning how this girl was stronger than he was, he and Uchiha. He silently wondered how things would change if he had awakened his Sharingan. Narumi and Naomi were wondering if they could destroy the mirrors and break through the dome. The three genin shared the same thought unknowingly, and acted simultaneously facing opposite directions. Fire release Grand Fireball, water release Water Javelin, wind release Dancing Blades. In came the shouts of Sasuke, Narumi, and Naomi as they launched off their respective jutsu, hoping to eliminate one of the mirrors trapping them. Sasuke's fireball merely melted the corners of the mirror he targeted. Narumi's javelin, consisting of water, buried itself into the mirror across from her, but instead of the mirror shattering, the javelin fell apart. The 10 wind blades cut the mirror Naomi targeted, but the cuts were just superficial. The Konoha genin could not believe that the damage was minimal at best. More so Sasuke, since his jutsu was to have melted the creation of ice. Those levels of attacks will not break my ice. I am sorry that I have to do this, but it is my mission and I can't fail. Zabuza-sama. Haku released a pulse of chakra into her technique, spreading it to the mirrors. The chakra given to each mirror instantly repaired the damage, leaving the mirrors appearing as if they were brand new. Haku went to the mirror positioned above the leaf genin's heads and pulled out 10 Saban needles, coating them in ice. Crossing her arms over her chest, holding a needle between each knuckle, took aim at the clueless Team 7. Hey Emo, I need you to provide the fire and I will use my wind to power it up. Got it? Naomi demanded of the Uchiha, glaring at one of the many reflections of Haku. Sasuke grunted, slightly annoyed by the Emo remark, but decided it was best to focus on the threat before his eyes. Sasuke nodded and moved next to Naomi as Narumi stood behind the two, waiting for their collaboration attack to start. Haku, who was overhead, had no intentions to let this happen because a wind-enhanced fire jutsu would surely melt one of her mirrors. Hayaton Ice Needles of Death. The 10 needles were quickly launched at the genin from above, and before they could react, more frozen Saban were launched at them from the left. Turning to the left, Sasuke, Narumi and Naomi were assaulted by more frozen needles from behind. This continued for the following minutes. The 3 genin were bleeding from cuts on their arms and legs, with more needles sticking from them like a pincushion. It was thanks to the Kyuubi chakra that Narumi and Naomi were still conscious. However, Sasuke was not as lucky. Just when it seemed that the Namikaze Uzumaki girls were about to defeat it, a large explosion drew the attention of all on the bridge. Prior to the explosion, "You're good." That was the simple statement Naruto used as he locked his blade, Twilight, against Chojuro's much larger Hiramakiri. Both teens were sweating lightly since their battle up to this point was nothing but a duel of swords. Chojuro was in worse condition, however, due to the effort it took to wield the Hiramakiri. Both swordsmen had small lacerations marking their clothing, but only a few of the cuts actually drew blood. Naruto eased up on his blade, causing the unsuspecting Kiri shinobi to stumble forward, leaving him open. Naruto took advantage and lashed out with a powerful kick to the gut. Chojuro tumbled to the ground from the force of the kick. Naruto stood there silently, waiting for Chojuro to stand up, since he had no desire to kill someone who could test his skills in the future. Thanks, you are pretty skilled yourself, Shinobi-san," Chojuro replied, wiping some blood that was dripping from the corner of his mouth. Chojuro's blade flared to life with chakra as he swung the blade at Naruto, who didn't have time to avoid it, and had to stop it with Twilight. The blue glow from the Hiramakiri was only inches from the bang of black hair over Naruto's eye, and inching closer. Soon the force was too much for Naruto to take, and Naruto was launched backwards into a railing. Groaning, Naruto shook the feelings back into his arm and shakily readied himself once more. He is incredible. He has managed to keep up with me to this point in swordsmanship, and I am one of the 7 swordsmen of the Hidden Mist. Can I win? Just when it seemed as if the blue-haired boy's confidence was going to falter, an image of a beautiful woman with red hair and a charming smile filled his mind. With his resolve strengthened, Chojuro lifted his blade up again and tried cutting Naruto down, missing by the narrowest of margins, cutting through the rail. Naruto, sensing his opponent become more confident through his concise actions, moved back to the center of bridge behind the other battles. He has gotten a lot more aggressive and energetic. What happened? Naruto asked himself, avoiding sword strikes from Chojuro backpedaling. Naruto suddenly saw Chojuro preparing something and quickly tensed himself. Soto Ninpo Hiramakiri Hammer. Naruto watched as Chojuro's blade changed from a twin's word into a bulkier, much wider shape to fit what Chojuro was trying to do. The chakra started off as a light blue and constantly grew and grew until the chakra became dense and heavy. It was clear that holding that much chakra was physically taxing as the sweat poured from Chojuro's forehead. Chojuro, with a war cry, swung his sword down, propelling the thick wall of chakra down on his black-haired opponent. The sight of a huge wave of chakra would have unnerved any genin. Fortunately, Naruto was already preparing for something along those lines. Kami no Ken no Mai crossing dimensions. Naruto, who was preparing his move ever since Chojuro's blade had started to change its shape to what it was currently, Naruto acted quickly by slashing the air twice. The first time the slash left an arc of red energy floating in front of Naruto. The second slash left an arc of clear energy. The first slash felt incredibly hot as it started to compact itself into an orb, as the second slash did the same with a light humming. This technique used Naruto's elemental chakra and compacted them, making their destructive qualities much more concentrated. The white orb and the fiery red orb slammed into the chakra wall, and the result was instantaneous. Boom! The wind orb compressed and created a small vacuum sphere, and the fiery red orb and combustion to the attack. Chojuro's wall of energy was also very volatile, so the result was rather impressive, a small blast of fire which no one on the bridge saw. Each battle on the bridge came to an end, and they all stared at the large cloud of smoke surrounding the point of contact. Everyone stood silent as they waited to see who would step out of the smoke, if anyone did. It took a few tense minutes for the smoke to clear away and reveal Naruto and Chojuro to the others. Both were on one knee, using their respective blades to keep them up. Both boys' clothes were burned in various places from their proximity to the explosion. No one moved or said a word, then a sound broke the eerie silence. Clapping. Information. Choto Ninpo Longsword Ninja Art. Soto Ninpo Twinsword Ninja Art. Clapping. That was the sound that pervaded the silent bridge, the sound of hands being brought together over and over. Naruto didn't bother in turning his head to take in the view the rest of the shinobi on the bridge had. Naruto's empty, blue eyes could see the surprise in the eyes of the Kiri team and the confusion in the Leafs. Naruto could feel a large group of people coming closer to his back, but then they stopped a few feet short of his position. The raven-haired shinobi knew that whatever was behind him was something that was an unexpected variable to this situation. The two teams of shinobi regrouped with their comrades, all of them aside from Naruto, who was still relaxed in his spot. Zabuza looked downright furious as the killer intent rolled off of his muscular frame in spades, the potency of which unnerved both Haku and Chojuro as Kushimaru was looking on while twirling his sewing needle. Gato, what is the meaning of this? Zabuza demanded, staring murderously at a short man dressed in a pinstripe suit with a really shabby cane in hand. This man was the shipping magnate, Gato, who had been creating a number of monopolies in maritime trading. The suited midget was surrounded by hundreds of thugs, each wearing a smug grin on their faces. Well, I realize that I am paying you Kiri shinobi way too much for the results you are giving me, especially when the demon of the hidden mist comes back licking his wounds after a small skirmish. So I hired these fine gentlemen to finish you off after your battle, saving me quite the lump sum of cash, Gato said smugly, his nasally voice grinded against the ears of the shinobi, reminding them of nails on a chalkboard. The horde of thugs chuckled at the look of rage on Zabuza's face, believing their superior numbers would win them this battle. Before Zabuza could retort, a random thug spoke up from the front of the group. Hey guys, let's hurry up and kill these idiots, and take those women, and have some fun, the thug exclaimed, eyeing Kushina, Narumi, Naomi, and Haku lustfully. This exclamation got a round of agreeing opinions from the other men. Kushina snarled at the men as Haku, Narumi, and Naomi squirmed uncomfortably. No one took note of how Naruto's eyebrow twitched hearing the scum's words. Naruto may not have liked his family one bit, however there were a few things that he hated even more, and that was rapists along with bigots. They spread unnecessary hate in the world, corrupting it with their animalistic behavior. Gato took one of his hands off of his cane and held his hand up in the air, silencing the chatter coming from his hired goons. No one could see where his beady eyes were looking behind his sunglasses. Tapping his cane on the bridge, Gato gazed at Naruto's back with a frown, obviously not pleased that the boy had not even acknowledged him. First, I want you to kill the brat, Gato ordered his labor force, pointing his cane at Naruto, who just stood up. Team 7, minus Sasuke and Sakura, were ready to jump in, and Zabuza and Haku looked ready to kill the slime ball themselves. You are nothing but a group of the blind being led by the blind. For your ignorance I shall remove you from existence. Naruto's ominous statement froze everyone on the bridge dead in their tracks. Naruto looked over at the shinobi who were watching him carefully as he hoisted Twilight up into the air, the metal glowing gray. Naruto quickly spun on his heels and slashed out diagonally, throwing a diagonal wave of gray-colored chakra with shimmers of a crimson energy embedded in the traveling slash. Each shinobi on the bridge were left wide-eyed seeing the energy slash rushing at Gato and his entourage, not believing Naruto could perform such a feat. Kami no Ken no My severance from the material world. The wave of gray and flickering crimson energy traveled through the mass of people, and the sight was not pretty on the eyes. Due to the angle of the attack, the cuts were not clean through at the waist. Some of them men were missing arms, some were cut diagonally, creating two triangular shapes that when put together would make a whole piece. The one happening that really stuck out was the explosion of blood that shot into the atmosphere. The blood fell like rain over that section of the bridge, a truly awe-inspiring yet gruesome sight. The other genin all felt the need to empty their stomachs while Kushina and Kakashi looked indifferent to the scene of mass slaughter. Zabuza and Kushimaru, who had his mask on, were smiling because it reminded them of the bloody mist period in their village. Naruto put Twilight back on the small of his back, the charm floating from its chain as Naruto walked through the piles of random body pieces that were severed from his attack. So I was not seeing things when that crimson energy mixed with my chakra during my spar back in Konoha. I suppose I am subconsciously channeling minuscule amounts of the Kyuubi's chakra into my techniques. Naruto mused, walking through the field of gore, stopping at the severed skull of the shipping magnate. With his glasses shattered, Naruto could see the look of shock plastered on Gato's face just before he died. Shaking his head, Naruto kicked the man's head off the bridge and into the roaring waves below. Naruto walked towards the other end of the bridge where his team was looking at him with awe, or at least the genin were. Naruto walked past the Kiri team to get to them and saw the Kunoichi looking at him like he was a riddle yet to be solved. As Naruto got even closer, Haku blushed faintly when she got a clear look at Naruto's face, which she thought to be handsome. Naruto saw the blush since Haku had taken off her mask but made no comment. As Naruto passed her, he whispered something that changed Haku's entire opinion on the young man. Evil like that has no place in this world. Haku found herself nodding without even knowing she was doing it. Naruto simply stood next to Tazuna with his eyes closed, and without saying a word to his temporary team. Tazuna meanwhile was staring at Naruto with a tremendous amount of respect because with one swing he had freed Nami no Kuni from its tyranny. Tazuna came to a conclusion that the Great Naruto Bridge would be a wonderful name for the bridge. Kakashi stepped forward to meet Zabuza in the middle ground between the two teams. The two A-ranked shinobi stared at each other wearily before Kakashi gave an eye smile and Zabuza a smirk. Zabuza stuck his hand out for a handshake. It was fun battling with you, Kakashi Hatake. However, since our employer went back on the contract on and is dead, we have no reason to continue fighting each other, Zabuza said, shaking the scarecrow shinobi's hand. It was a thrill for Zabuza to cross paths with someone so skilled. Zabuza knew he was a battle-thirsty man and had no problems admitting it to himself, or anyone for that matter. Kakashi, who shook the man's hand, was glad that the fight was over since he wouldn't call the battle fun. He just wanted to go home and rest from this C-turned-a-rank mission. Kakashi, we aren't letting them go, are we? They are our enemies. We need to finish what we started. Sasuke voiced his opinion on the matter, still seething over his defeat at the hands of the ice-release Kunoichi. Sakura, who usually sided with the power-hungry Uchiha, did not agree with his sentiment this time. She was glad that all the fighting was over and had no desire to rekindle the conflict. The Namikaze Uzumaki girls were just wondering how this was going to play out. Naruto opted to stand silently next to the bridge builder, letting Sasuke's ignorance speak for itself. No, Sasuke, they are not our enemies, not anymore. They simply accepted a mission just like we accepted the mission to protect Tazuna-san. Now that their mission has been voided, we no longer have any problems with Kiri. It was Kushina who explained the situation to Sasuke, who looked none too pleased with the explanation given, though that does not mean we are on friendly terms with the Hidden Mist. It seems that report that the rebel forces had acquired the Seven Swordsmen's help in the civil war were true. If they are accepting missions, then that must mean the war is over, and that means there will be a lot of animosity between the Leaf and Mist because we did not aid them. We were lucky we ran into Zabuza and not someone more interested in politics. Kakashi nodded his head, agreeing with Kushina's assessment of the situation the two teams of shinobi found themselves in. After returning the handshake, Team 7, Naruto and Tazuna walked back towards Tazuna's home, leaving the Kiri shinobi to walk in the opposite direction. It took the following week for repairs to be made to the pre-existing infrastructure of the bridge as well as the completion of the bridge. During that week, Naruto made sure to keep himself as scarce as possible as to avoid the conversations his so-called family would no doubt wish for. However, it was not something he wished to have. It would be useless. Team 7 and Naruto stood at the end of the now completed bridge facing down the citizens of Nami no Kuni. The mood was festive, and with good reason, because years of tyranny under the oppressive rule of Gato had finally come to an end. Naruto, who standing on the mainland watched on as his team conversed with Tazuna and his family. Seeing the talks were coming to an end, Naruto turned around and began the walk towards Konoha without saying a word. Naruto did not feel the need to say anything. He was not their hero, and he had no desire to be either, but he couldn't shake the weird feeling that it was too late for that. Team 7, realizing that Naruto had already gone on ahead, hurried on to close the distance. "Father, what are we going to name the bridge?" Tsunami asked her father after watching Team 7 and Naruto fade from her vision. The rest of the citizens leaned in, also wanting to know what the name of the bridge that would return their home to prosperity would be. "We are going to name it after the kid who saved this country with a single slash of his sword. We will call it the Great Naruto Bridge." Naruto was sitting on the railing right outside of his small apartment inside of the red light district, enjoying the peace of the village when it was quiet. The sun was setting and the people were getting ready to retire and have dinner with their families. From this perspective, Naruto was truly reminded what the village was. The village hidden in the leaves was a beautiful place that just so happened to have terrible people living in it. However, that was a necessary evil for the village to maintain itself. Naruto reached behind him and angled twilight in a way so it would reflect the orange rays of light from the setting sun. This world is equal parts shadows and light, and this village is no different. Naruto found that his apartment was one of the nicest places in the village, and it was located in the heart of the red light district. The apartment was abandoned for reasons Naruto cared not to know, and it was in complete disarray, but a few ceiling arrays solved that. Apparently no one wanted the apartment complex, and that was fine. It was thanks to that Naruto could find peace here. Naruto would have taken to watching the village from atop the Hokage monument, but he found it to be too close to the Namake's compound, so that was immediately off his list. Naruto sighed softly, closing his eyes, allowing the orange glow of the falling sun to bathe his seated form. Taking twilight and placing on his back, Naruto looked behind him and was looking at the porcelain ANBU mask of Agent Sparrow. He had sensed the man the second he entered the small block and was waiting for whatever it was he had to say. The man must have picked up on this, because as soon as he had Naruto's eye, he was ready to speak. "Hokage-sama requests that you visit him at the Namake's compound." Even though he said request, Naruto knew that it wasn't a request, this was an order from his Kage. "All I need to do is think of his home, and the man requires my presence. I swear, Kami, you must take some sick pleasure in seeing me in misery." Naruto mentally addressed the deity of creation with a narrowed glance at the sky. Naruto stood on the railing and glanced over his shoulder to see that the ANBU operative had already taken his leave. Naruto closed his eyes and his body soon broke into a number of crows that flew towards the Hokage monument. It only took a few moments for the crows to converge on the head of Hiruzen Sarutobi and Naruto to form. Naruto took his time walking through the woods that provided the natural cover for what he once called home. Naruto walked through the forest with his hands inside of the pockets of his gray zipped-up vest and hood over his head, creating a shadow over his face. Naruto saw the gate to the compound was already open, no doubt for his arrival. Naruto walked down the path and could see that the front door was open and there was some talking he heard from inside. Naruto was only a few steps from having to face the unfortunate music when he heard a loud snort coming from his mind. Naruto just realized that the Kyuubi had been silent during the whole time and wave after their connection was made. "Hello, Kyuubi." The Kyuubi's eyes slowly opened up, hearing the voice of his pseudo container's voice for the first time. This told him that the connection they had created was successful and fully operational. The Kyuubi could feel the contempt rolling off of Naruto in waves and was curious as to why. It only took the Kyuubi a few moments to realize why, since he picked up the signature of that despicable man who sealed him away again. "What is going on? Why are we here?" Ninja the Kyuubi, just waking up, was in no mood for the foolish human pleasantries and wanted to know what was happening. Naruto let out the quietest of sighs as he walked up the steps to his one-time home, listening as the voices got louder and clearer. That man has requested my presence here as the Hokage, so I have no choice. It seems like they are trying to bring me back into the family, the fools. It looks like you will get a free show, Kyuubi, enjoy. Naruto went silent and walked into the house. Taking a few steps in, Naruto was greeted by Minato and Kushina sitting on one couch with Kakashi standing behind their couch. Naomi and Narumi were also sitting on a couch looking at him hopefully. Naruto almost frowned when he realized that Jiraiya and Tsunade had positioned themselves behind him. Jiraiya of the Sannin was the fabled Toad Sage of Mount Myobokuzen, a man whose name alone was to strike fear into the enemies of Konoha and respect in the hearers of Konoha shinobi. He was one of the reasons Konoha was always one step ahead of the other hidden villages, him and his extensive spy network. He was also renowned as a teacher since his student had become the most powerful shinobi in this era. The other figure behind him was Tsunade, also a member of the Sannin. She was a legendary medic as well as a kunoichi who had saved many lives during the wars and the current head of the hospital in Konoha. Both of these people were supposed to act as his godparents, but shirked on their responsibilities. Hello Naruto, it was Minato that spoke first, trying to break the tension that had flooded the room from Naruto's arrival. Any conversation that was being had was immediately quelled when Naruto entered the compound and replaced by a silent intensity. Naruto's body language gave nothing away as he stared at Minato since he had spoken. He was ignoring the sad expressions on the faces of his so-called family. He was asked here by Minato, so he would let him do the speaking. Minato's sad smile grew a bit more seeing how his son was looking at him like nothing more than a stranger. Kushina, being the more blunt and exuberant of the two, could not take the silence anymore and blurted out the reason for Naruto's presence. Naruto, please come live with us so that we can become a family again. Naruto turned his head to look at the red-haired Uzumaki who had just uttered a desperate plea. Naruto saw how the expressions of his family lifted, probably from the thought of returning to a family. Naruto remained stoic and brought his arms over his chest, one blue eye hidden by his black hair, and the other boring into Kushina with a cold intensity. Naruto did not even need to think about how he was going to respond to his mother's question because the answer was clear as can be to him. No. Everyone in the room stared at Naruto with different expressions on their face, but they didn't expect a one-word answer. Any hope that the family was feeling was instantly squashed under Naruto's blank, emotionless tone. Naruto could feel the two Sannin behind him frowning deeply at his words but did not care. To Naruto, no one in the building at the moment had any significant value to him. Naruto felt a sudden wave of killer intent coming from behind him and saw Jiraiya move to stand by Kakashi looking quite pale. It didn't take a genius to figure out where it was coming from. Behind Naruto stood a very angry female Senju who was trying her best to restrain herself from making Naruto a stain at the end of her fist. The brat in front of her had a family practically begging him to come back home, and he said no. Tsunade thought about how lucky Naruto had it. After losing her brother and lover in war, she was denied that chance by death, but he had a chance and said no. Listen here, brat, you are going to come back and live with Minato and Kushina-chan, and then you are going to give your mother a hug. Stop acting like a spoiled brat and do the right thing and live with your family. Naruto closed his eyes and took a few calming breaths lest he let his Sharingan activate from the sheer intensity of the anger he was feeling. The Kyuubi could feel the amount of contempt that Naruto had whenever he was said to relate it to what was considered the perfect family. Calming himself, Naruto opened his eyes and looked straight ahead, seemingly at nowhere. Family is a group of people who love you no matter what you have done. They love you no matter what faults you may have and will always be there to protect you. That is something Theseus people in front of me did not do. They did the opposite and threw me to the scorned wolves of Konoha who sought revenge for the lives the Kyuubi took. Night after night I was abused and spat on. Day after day I was ignored and punished by those two for seeking the attention they lavished their princesses with. Naruto almost spat out his entire speech, not bothering to glance back at Tsunade. You are telling me to do the right thing, Tsunade? Which of you were doing the right thing when the fox hunts were tearing through the streets of Konoha? My own blood ignored my pleas for help. My godparents were too busy keeping the village who were trying to kill me on a daily basis alive and well. That is the reason I curse this blood flowing through my veins, because every single day I am reminded that I am related to such trash. The only reason I am not insane is thanks to the few people who listened to young boys screaming for help and lent a hand instead of plugging their ears and walking away like you all did. Only a few times had Naruto let his emotions slip during the truthful rant he rattled off. Kushina, Naomi, and Narumi were openly weeping at what Naruto was saying. Minato, Jiraiya, and Kakashi were frowning somberly since they knew Naruto was not lying. Tsunade was still livid with the disrespectful brat who she thought was just using that as an excuse. Now, Naruto, surely you could forgive Minato-sama and Kushina-sama for overlooking you like they did. They had a lot of things they had to deal with, and were doing the best they could. You still had a home and food to come. Taihei still cared. Kakashi tried to help Naruto see reason and hopefully bring Naruto back, since he too wanted to train who was supposed to be like a little brother to him. Kakashi was not even reading his Ika book showing just how serious the situation was. Naruto's cold blue eyes stared holes through Kakashi with a silent intensity. Yes, there was something more important than their son. I always thought a father was supposed to protect their son while mothers were supposed to shower them with love. I received none of that, not from them. It is funny this is coming from you of all people, Scarecrow. Was it not your saying that in the ninja world, those who break the rules are trash? That's true, but those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash. Well, you all abandoned me. Naruto turned to look at Narumi, who was looking at him with a forced smile and watery eyes. On the day I chose to make my life better was the day of our birth, yet I had no importance on that day. I left, and no one noticed until they found the letter I left in my excuse of a room. There was one person who made an effort even if it was late. Naruto reached behind him and pulled out Twilight and held it so that the ornament that consisted of two kunais that crossed over each other at their tips was lying on his palm for all to see. The one kunai on the left was a pure white, while the kunai on the right was a jet black. Under the kunai was a red Uzumaki swirl that was connected to the loops on the kunai handles. The initials UN were etched into the Uzumaki swirl in black and white to match the kunais above. This is the reason I will talk with Narumi in public, or on missions. However, she is the only one. The only one who had proven to be truly remorseful before my disappearance. This doesn't mean we are family, but this means we are something. Naruto himself wasn't sure what they could be or if they would be anything. He needed to get out of this place now and needed time to think. Turning around after fastening Twilight back in place, Naruto took a step towards Tsunade, who was still in front of the door, when he felt someone gripping his shoulder. Naruto, this is my fault. It was thanks to me that your parents neglected you all so we could help nurture the savior of the world. The toads have told me of a prophecy long ago, and I thought it was one of your sisters who were to be the savior, yet the prophecy has changed. The toads have told me of a prophecy of a man. Jiraiya was cut off as Naruto brushed his hand off of the shoulder and turned around with his eyes closed. I can see just fine with these eyes of mine, Toad, and it shows me the brutal truth that we as humans hide behind. Naruto said ominously with his eyes shut, very telling of what he was thinking of the shinobi world. Kyuubi, can you channel your chakra to my eyes just enough to alter them? Naruto requested calmly of his tenant. The Kyuubi did as he asked, and Naruto opened his eyes, showing the blue eyes red and slit much like the Kyuubi's own. Jiraiya winced at the sight and released Naruto's shoulder. Naruto turned to see the stubborn female Senju still in his way. Minato, who saw the anger in the bestial eyes of his son, frowned at his own failure to be a father. Vowing to himself to try and make amends with Naruto at any opportunity, if only so he could maybe call Naruto a friend at least, that was his hope. Minato saw Tsunade still in Naruto's path and hardened his blue eyes to match what Naruto would normally look like. Tsunade, stand down, Minato ordered the Senju, who looked at him defiantly, clearly not happy with the order, her eyes glancing over to Kushina, who was giving her the same look as Minato. I said stand down now, Minato repeated himself, flaring his chakra to put an immense pressure directly on Tsunade, who began to sweat lightly. It was just a reminder why Minato Namikaze was even more feared than the Sannin. Relenting, Tsunade moved aside and Naruto walked out of the house without saying a word to anyone. Everyone in the room had their own thoughts about what had just happened. The Namikaze Uzumaki family and Kakashi all saw that there was a flicker of hope for a united family. Jiraiya was pondering how Naruto referenced his eyes during their brief interaction, and that reaffirmed his belief that the prophecy spoke of Naruto. Tsunade was slowly calming down but had a clear distaste for the eldest son of the family. Meanwhile, the Kyuubi was thinking about what just happened between his container and his family. Why did I give him my chakra so freely back there? Even if it wasn't for power's sake, I still gave it away. Why him? I did it to see the fear in those ninjas' faces at the sight of my eyes. That's why, even unknown to the powerful chakra beast, he had something akin to respect for the scorned child of the Hokage. It was something the Kyuubi had never felt before since the Sage of Six Paths, and had forgotten what it was, but it was there. It had been a handful of months since Naruto had returned to the village hidden in the leaves, and Naruto made himself as busy as possible. Naruto had accomplished an impressive number of Drank missions during that time. The easiest was when he was assigned to capture the demon cat Tora, who had just jumped into Naruto's arms and got comfortable when he had approached. He had done this mission a number of times, and apparently the cat had taken a liking to Naruto, not that he minded all that much. Naruto had realized that animals just naturally drifted to him when he was called to the Inuzuka compound to assist Hana with taking care of the sick or injured ninja hounds. All the pups seemed to react to Naruto's presence. It was like the animals could see right through Naruto's outer cold facade to the warmth underneath. Naruto, since he did not have a team, usually had to take the crank missions with the other genin teams, which were unique experiences to say the least. Naruto was assigned to Team 8 to travel to the land of Tea to deliver a message. The delivery was not a problem, but once they got to their destination, they found out some unexpected news. Apparently, a group of bandits had been terrorizing the countryside and requested their help. Team 8 agreed to help people in need, and Naruto just didn't care one way or the other. He was no hero, just a shinobi. Naruto was able to gather some information on each genin member of the team led by Kurenai just by being on their team. Kiba was the second in line to become heir to the Inuzuka, second to Hana. The boy was brash, headstrong, and had a tendency to overestimate his own ability while underestimating his opponent's ability. His entire fighting style revolved around partnering with his ninja hound Akamaru, with no skill shown towards elemental ninjutsu. Hinata was the Hyuga heiress, who was the opposite of Kiba. She was meek and very, very reserved, though Naruto was able to deduce that she had a crush on Naomi, which made Naruto's lips curl into a smile thinking of Naomi and a fangirl. Hinata too relied on her clan jutsu. Shino was the Aburame clan heir, who too showed no talent for elemental ninjutsu like his teammates. However, Shino did think much like a shinobi should. He was calm and tactical. Naruto worked with Team 10 on a simple herb and medical supply gathering mission on the request of Tsunade. The mission went on without a hitch, but that proved to be curse in disguise for Naruto. With all of the time they had while searching, Ino took it upon herself to get to know Naruto better. This, of course, consisted of flirting with Naruto, who Ino found handsome, which Naruto found annoying to say the least. When Shikamaru mentioned Sasuke, Ino would snap at the lazy Nara, saying how she would always love her Sasuke-kun. Naruto knew that if he was ever to get a girlfriend, it would not be a fangirl, never. Shikamaru was one of the few people from his childhood around his age that took the time to get to know Naruto, so they were friendly enough. Shikamaru, like every Nara who seemed to ever live, was lazy but a genius. Naruto knew that when the situation called for it, Shikamaru became deadly efficient and could be counted on. Where Shikamaru was lazy, his friend and teammate, Choji, was equal parts kind and hungry. Naruto also made note that out of all of the teams he had the opportunity to work with, Team 10 had the best teamwork. Choji was the close-quarters fighter, with Shikamaru switching between long-range and close-range, with Ino providing support. He had not worked with Team 9, however he was aware that their sensei was the Leaf's noble green beast Mado guy. By far his least favorite team to work with was Team 7 because of the terrible dynamic the team had together. Kushina and Naomi were always trying to pull him back into their family while Sasuke was trying to fight him. Then there was the worst aspect of the team, was Sakura, who had the nasty habit of screeching like a banshee. It was so bad that even the Kyuubi thought it was cruel and unusual punishment to have to listen to. Naruto was walking by the main gate of Konoha when he caught a sight that intrigued the young man. A team of shinobi and their sensei were talking to the Eternal Gate guards and showing them their shinobi licenses. The team was all wearing IWA headbands, which made Naruto wonder what was going on. Why is IWA here? They wouldn't be caught dead here in Konoha unless there was a chance to tarnish the village. Alright, Mihawk Sensei did tell me about the Chunin exams. Looks like I need to have another talk with the Hokage about this since I can't miss this chance to reveal myself on the grand stage. The kunoichi who was walking at the front of the group was wearing a bright brown IWA flak jacket with the right sleeve missing from the jacket. There was a cloth hanging over her leg which she covered with fishnet tights. The IWA kunoichi had short black hair and pink eyes that were lacking a pupil. Trailing slightly behind the kunoichi and to the left was a rather large shinobi who was smiling dopily. His headband was over his head like a bandana where Naruto's spotted black hair spiking out of. He too was dressed with an IWA flak jacket but had a yellow scarf around his neck. To his right was another kunoichi which Naruto was the most curious about. The kunoichi was wearing a diver's helmet with a steel cage over the opening the helmet. Naruto could see her gray eyes looking around the village, walking silently behind her teammates. Naruto noticed how there were tubes going to each end of the helmet, and Naruto could see a green substance going into the helmet which made him even more interested in the kunoichi. Naruto could see that she was attractive with her face, and as her flak did little to hide her D-cup bust, Naruto's eyes met hers and she smiled and winked at Naruto, which only confused him. Seeing the IWA team gone in the distance, Naruto let out a dreary sigh and looked up into the sky almost pleadingly. "I hope you are ready to see me suffer once more, Kami," Naruto stated to the sky mentally, and just then a wind blew by, blowing Naruto's bang with the direction of the wind. Naruto just silently cursed the forces of nature for laughing at his plight before disappearing in a crow shunshin. Minato was sitting behind his desk reading over the details for each stage of the upcoming Chunin exams and making changes where he thought there should be changes. Finishing with the first stage, Minato suddenly felt a signature entering his office, followed by a swarm of crows. Minato closed up the file he was about to go over and calmly waited for his son to finish his entrance, one he experienced a number of times since his return. Minato had a feeling he knew what this was about, but he would let Naruto say what it was he wanted to say. Naruto brought his arms up over his chest and stared at Minato intently, his deep oceanic eyes boring into Minato's lighter blue eyes. A number of A and B were squirming in the shadows from the intensity alone between the father and son. "I will be short with this. I want you to enter me into the Chunin exams," Naruto stated calmly, looking at the Hokage stoically with a few feathers from his crows twirling around him from the breeze coming through an open window behind Minato. Minato nodded inwardly since this was just what he expected Naruto to ask him to do. "I can't do that, Naruto. You are just one shinobi and you need a team to compete in these exams," Minato informed his son in the tone the Hokage would use when he was talking to a subordinate. What Naruto's file showed was a shinobi with excellent fundamentals and exceptional swordsmanship, but nothing else. However, Minato was not fooled. He was sure if Naruto was to compete in the exams, he would learn much more about Naruto. He just didn't know how right he was and how much he would learn. Naruto simply stared at Minato with one black eyebrow arched in idle curiosity. "I am a team just like Team 7 is a team. I do not recall that there were a specific number of people required to participate, and even if there was, you are the Kage of the hosting village, you have certain liberties," Naruto stated calmly, his posture not once shifting from the calm and slightly imposing stature he took. Now it was not imposing for Minato, but his son did seem to have the air of a trained warrior. Minato let a smile cross his face since what Naruto was saying was indeed true. There were no number requirements. He knew Naruto would make a fantastic politician. Naruto's eyes shot to the left where the door was behind him before he turned back to look at the Hokage. "It seems we will be cut short. I have given you my request, and it would be in the best interest of Konoha to grant me my request." With his piece said, Naruto performed a normal body flicker and exited the Hokage's office just before the door opened up and 5 shinobi walked in. Those shinobi were the senseis of the rookie ninja of Konoha: Kushina, Kakashi, Asuma, and Kurenai. There was also the sensei of Team 9, Meito Gai. "You all know why I have called you here today. The Chunin exams will be coming up in a few weeks, but these are no ordinary exams. This will be the 30th International Chunin exams. I know you may think that some of your teams aren't ready, but we need them in the exams, but I still need your formal approval," Minato stated, his jaw hidden behind his interlaced fingers, getting understanding nods from the jounin in front of him. It was important that Konoha put on a good showing, especially with each of the 5 great hidden villages attending these exams. On the name of Kushin and Namikaze Uzumaki, I nominate Team 7 for the 30th International Chunin exams. Kakashi looked up from his little, orange book, feeling the eyes in the room on him, and I smiled at his former sensei. What she said? Kakashi stated before going back to his Aika getting sweat drops from his fellow jounin as well as Minato and a rant from Guy about his hip attitude. I Kurinai Yuhi nominate Team 8 for the 30th International Chunin exams. Yashai Madogai nominate my most youthful Team 9 for this year's opportunity to prove one's springtime of youth. Asuma stepped out and blew out some smoke. I Asuma Sarutobi nominate Team 8 for the 30th International Chunin exams. Minato nodded his head and leaned into his chair, smiling at his wife and Jounin, obviously glad there were no arguments. Alright, you all need to go and tell your teams and convince them if they are hesitant. With a collective hi Hokagesima, the Jounin all funneled out of the office door. Minato turned to the window where he found his sensei sitting on the window ledge looking out into the village. What do you think, Jiraiya-sensei? Should I let him take the exam alone? Minato asked his teacher, hoping for a bit of advice on the matter, although he was already leaning in one direction. I think you should let him take the exam. He sounded very confident in himself, and this is finally the chance you have been looking for to learn the extent of his abilities. Plus, it wouldn't look good if your son was to not compete in a tournament of this caliber, Jiraiya said seriously as he jumped into the office and took a seat across from his former student and current Kage. Minato smiled at his sensei and nodded his head, since he too was of the same mind with what could be accomplished by allowing Naruto in the exams. That is what I was thinking as well. Nico, I want you to go and inform Naruto that he will be taking the exams, and inform him where he must be and by when. Minato could see Nico leaving his office and looked back at his sensei. Jiraiya-sensei, I need you to stay in the village because during the final stage of the exams the Kages will be attending, and I want to make sure Konoha will remain in peace. Minato said it as more of an order than a request, but nonetheless Jiraiya nodded his head in agreement. The two then went into a discussion about how best to defend the village. Naruto was walking down the streets of Konoha to get to a training ground so that he could run through a few sword stances as well as train with his clones. It had been a week since he was informed of his acceptance into the Chunin exams, and there was still another 10 days until the exams were to start. Naruto knew that his foolish father would not pass up a chance to see what he was capable of. This also gave Naruto his chance to test himself against a number of different opponents who would provide different problems. Naruto did not really care about impressing anyone, but he knew a good performance would help Konoha, but he planned to win the exams regardless. While walking down the street, Naruto heard some loud commotion coming from the end of the street next to him. Naruto turned his vision to see what was going on that was causing such a ruckus in the public area. One of the causes of the noise was dark-skinned, flat-chested Kunoichi with long red hair and a sword on her back. She had a long-sleeved dress on underneath a Kumo flak jacket. The other person joining her in creating all of the noise was a shinobi from Suna who was wearing a body suit that had cat ears. Despite being a boy, Naruto saw he was wearing makeup and had something on his back. Naruto recognized the boy they were yelling at as Konohamaru Sarutobi. There was a girl standing behind the boy wearing makeup. She had a large iron fan strapped to her back. She had a purple clothing garment that went down halfway to her thighs, and her blonde hair was fashioned into 4 ponytails. Behind the Kumo Kunoichi stood 3 people. Naruto guessed it was her team. The first was a dark-skinned shinobi about Naruto's height with short, spiky white hair. He too was dressed in the Kumo flak with a sword on his back, but was looking at Konohamaru with an apologetic look while ing on a lollipop. Next to him was a fair-skinned Kunoichi with short, straight blonde hair. She was wearing her Kumo flak around her stomach and had her outfit cut to display her sizable bust, probably to distract enemies who would fall prey to such a thing. Naruto's eyes narrowed in on the final member of the Kumo shinobi team. There was something that seemed familiar about her. She had long, straight blonde hair that was bound using rubber bands. She was wearing a black and purple blouse with short sleeves and cloud design on the left side. She had fingerless gloves with a chain of blue beads around her left hand and arm. The black shinobi pants the Kunoichi was wearing also had the cloud design going down the left leg, though Naruto really took notice of her blue, slitted eyes that were currently filled with annoyance. What is it about that kunoichi that makes her seem so familiar to me, like I have known her forever? Naruto questioned himself, unaware that the Kyuubi was up and listening to his container. Ningen, that human carries my sister the two tails. That is why she seems so familiar to your senses. Naruto nodded his head and looked back at Konohamaru, who looked very frightened, along with two other small kids who were behind him. Naruto channeled his chakra into his ears to allow him to pick up on what they were saying without walking into their field of awareness. This way he could get their intentions without any external pressure. Listen here, Kumo. The brat ran into me first, so I am the one who is going to get to teach the Konoha brat here some manners, the boy wearing the cat bodysuit told the redhead rather heatedly. Naruto could see a few veins bulging on the boy's forehead, showing just how angry he was. Kankuro, just let it go. We don't need to go causing any trouble here in a foreign village. The boy's sister Temari tried to get the Suna puppeteer to see reason and avoid an international incident. One Suna could not have, especially not with their only ally. Why would a boy even be wearing makeup? Don't you have any kind of masculinity inside of you? Kurohime, the red-headed kunoichi from Kumo, taunted the Suna shinobi while her hand went to reach for her sword, eyeing Konohamaru. Ignoring the shout of its war paint from Kankuro, Karui's amber eyes flickered dangerously. Now then, why don't we shave off a few inches off a brat? The white-haired shinobi, Omoi, started to wave his hands around frantically, trying to get Karui's attention before she attacked the boy. Karui, what if you hurt the boy? Then the third Hokage goes to Kumo and shows why he is the god of shinobi and kills Asama. The Bizensai attacks and kills the third Hokage, and we go to war with Konoha and the Yellow Flash. Omo finished taking a deep breath, using his tongue to keep his loli from falling out of his mouth. This got sighs from his team and sweat drops from the Suna shinobi. Konohamaru was just scared by the sword being pointed at him. Well, I guess it is time to go strike some fear into the competition and show them why they need to behave in my village. Kyuubi, will they identify me or those other two as the Jinchuriki? Naruto waited for the Kyuubi to respond as he heard what he guessed was random noises the Kyuubi was making while contemplating his question. I would say that they would see the container as you, since they can only sense the chakra in the person who holds the consciousness. Naruto did his single hand sign and performed a natureless body flicker in front of Konohamaru. You know he is right. Since you two shinobi were just planning on assaulting the third's grandson, and here in Konoha nonetheless. Not to mention he is only an academy student. Naruto said, suddenly appearing between Kankuro, Karui and Konohamaru with his katana, twilight drawn. Naruto's sudden arrival put all of the foreign nin on high alert, since Naruto had only just appeared and with a weapon drawn. I wouldn't do that if I were you, it would prove fatal. Naruto added on, seeing that each of 6 shinobi were ready to try and get into a fighting stance. This confused the teams from Suna and Kumo. That was until they looked. Behind each of them, with a katana aimed at a vital area, was an equally serious shadow clone of Naruto. There was even a shadow clone looking up into a tree while leaning against the trunk, surprising the shinobi in the tree. While they were busy with the shock of being surrounded, Naruto turned back to look at Konohamaru with a small grin on his face. Kono, why don't you and your friends get out of here while I deal with these idiots? Konohamaru's face lit up, and he nodded, since only one person had ever called him that, and that was Naruto, who he didn't recognize till just now. Konohamaru and his friends took off the opposite direction, and Naruto turned back around to see another Suna shinobi was standing with the group. He had red hair and the kanji for love over his eye. My name is Gaara Sabaku. Who are you? The redhead carrying a gourd on his back asked, wondering just who this strong shinobi in front of him was. This was a sentiment shared by the other Suna genin and the Kumo nin. Naruto stared indifferently at Gaara, which made the boy's eyes narrow at Naruto, since it reminded him of his childhood. Blood, I want his blood. Gaara chose to ignore his mother this time, for now at least. Nibi, just who is this guy? Yujito asked her own tailed beast curiously, since it seemed like he was familiar to her. I don't know, kitten, but I do know he holds the Kyuubi's chakra inside of him. I believe he is suppressing it, but that is only because it is so faint. The Kyuubi great and Karui just had to go and annoy the guy, Yujito thought as she looked at Naruto much more wearily than just moments before. Naruto looked at Gaara as his shadow clones disappeared in small clouds of smoke, letting the other shinobi minus Gaara breathe a sigh of relief. My name is Naruto, and let me give you all a saying that applies during your entire stay here in Konoha. Naruto said with a fake smile on his face as he released some of his own power that weighed down on the shoulders of each of the genin. There was no malicious intent behind the pressure, it was just pressure. Each of the genin had a bead of sweat trickle down their foreheads. I know that two of you are Jinchuriki, so I will only say this once. A tanuki cannot play dead to avoid a kitsune, and the cat cannot scratch the fox in its den. With that, Naruto vanished in another shunshin, leaving the groups minus the Jinchuriki wide-eyed. Kitten, did you feel that was just his power forcing you down? There was no sign of the Kyuubi's chakra. He is quite powerful. You should take him to your hotel room and ride. The Nibi's lustful purring was cut off by a blushing Yujito who was trying to hide the red in her cheeks. Nibi, I won't just take him and have sex with him. I do not even know his name or anything about him, Yujito mentally yelled at her naughty-tailed beast, finally managing to push back that annoying blush on her cheeks from the mental images of Naruto and her doing unspeakable things coming from Nibi. Temari, Kankuro, we are going to meet Baki. Gaara ordered his two elder siblings, who complied without hesitation. The Kumo shinobi all shared a glance and agreed it was best for them to avoid Naruto during the exams if they could help it. Then they too left to go and meet their eccentric sensei and inform him of the situation they found themselves in. Naruto was sitting on his bed in a meditative position in just his shinobi pants, eyes closed, as the room slowly grew dim from the lighting seals placed on the walls. Naruto was currently sitting in his mindscape, having a conversation with his resident tailed beast. Tell me, Kyuubi, who should I look out for out there? Naruto asked, seeking the large kitsune's advice on the matter since it would be foolish not to use a 1,000-plus-year-old resource. The Kyuubi, who was resting on his front two paws, looked at Naruto as if he was an insect, but in the end relented. Nibi probably advised her container to avoid challenging me since she was always a smart one, unlike that fool the Four Tails. Anyways, if I had to guess, you would probably need to beat down that sand brat since Shikaku was always a bloodthirsty fool with an inferiority complex. The only place he could prove to be a true threat would be in the desert, where he has tons of sand at his command. The Kyuubi told Naruto, who was listening intently to the Kyuubi's informative, closed his eyes and opened them up, showing his 3 Tomo Sharingan. It turns out that in the mindscape they would activate on their own, much to the Kyuubi's ire, but he eventually accepted that since Naruto proved to have no desire to control him. Alright, so then Gaara will most likely be using sand-based techniques. He will probably have the sand in that gourd he was carrying on his back. That means he has a fixed amount of sand at his command, Naruto said to himself, just for the sake of having the information in his head in case of a conflict between he and his fellow human sacrifice. Can you tell me anything about the Nibi? I mean, we wouldn't want to be bested by any of the inferior beasts, would we? Naruto asked, playing on the Kyuubi's great pride, something he shared with the Kyuubi since he did not like to appear weak either. The Kyuubi's eyes narrowed at Naruto before his large mouth opened up with a very vulpine-like grin, showing his large, gleaming teeth. The one tail the Kyuubi had gotten back was flickering back and forth with amusement. Of course, either of those two is as strong as I am. Nigen, I am the Kyuubi. I am the incantation of destruction. I have not done combat with the Nibi in ages since she has priorities and other things, but I do remember her affinity to fire was second only to mine. Naruto nodded his head, but it seemed like the Kyuubi had one last nugget of information to add on to this discussion. I also remember hearing when I was sealed inside of that woman that the 8 tails had become partners with a human from Kumo. It would make sense that he would have taught the girl to partner with Nibi. Shikaku wouldn't have paired with the Suna brat, so you won't have to worry about that. The Kyuubi chose not to call Kushina Naruto's mother, remembering how volatile Naruto would get. That, and he had no wish to test Naruto's ocular prowess in his state of frown, hearing that the blonde from Kumo could possibly use her Bijuu's chakra to aid her, but then again Naruto had his eyes, so it might not be such a problem. Only an actual conflict would tell who would win out. Naruto slowly let his eyes open again, and instead of a sewer, Naruto found himself looking into his bedroom in the house in the red light district. Naruto ran his hand through his jet black hair with a sigh. Standing up, Naruto walked to the bathroom where he started his shower and looked into the mirror over the sink. Letting his Sharingan roar to life, Naruto stared intently at his own reflection. Soon, very soon, the whole world will know just how great of an impact I can make on this world. Taking a deep breath, Naruto let his red eyes fade back to the blue eyes he was born with. Naruto took a step into the shower and let the warm water wash over his body and relax his sore muscles. Konoha always loved the look underneath the underneath saying, so I hazard to guess that will be the first or second stage of these exams. Then after that probably a survival stage to thin the numbers down a bit before a final tournament. The tournament will allow the villages to showcase their shinobi and by extension their strength. Naruto closed his eyes for a moment to relax before finishing his shower and heading off to bed. 10 more days and then I will have a whole new set of problems to deal with, but it is a necessary evil. Naruto closed his eyes and in a few minutes Naruto drifted off to sleep. Naruto was standing in front of the Hidden Leaf Academy looking at the building impassively from under his hood. Now Naruto had not attended the academy since Mihawk had come to take Naruto from Konoha the year he was to join the academy. For some reason Naruto just thought they probably taught something stupid like Konoha during times of peace, which is why none of the shinobi in the exams outside of Team 7 knew any elemental ninjutsu. Naruto shook his head since it was amazing that Konoha could remain where it was with such a weak generation of shinobi. They truly needed to pick up their training if they wanted to surpass the last generation. However, that was not Naruto's problem. His only problem, if it could be called that, were these exams. These exams brought shinobi of all kinds from different corners of the world here to Konoha to show everyone watching what they could do. Naruto could only smile with anticipation at the number of strong opponents he may be able to fight. Naruto found the talent in Konoha sorely lacking and hoped the other villages could provide genin who would pique his interest. That did not matter at the moment, however, since to get there Naruto had a few other stages to run through before then. Showtime. Review response: Naruto does not care for the people of the village, but can't see the village he was born in subjugated under another's whim. He is like Madara in that sense, since Madara did not like what Hashirama did but still wanted Konoha to prosper just under his vision well before he changed it to the Eye of the Moon, but I digress. How Naruto unlocks the Mangekyo is a secret. Chojuro is no missing nin because neither was Zabuza since the rebel side won their war. Naruto is by no means a Jounin level shinobi yet, so no, he is not on Kakashi's level. The reason he defeated Aoba was because they were in a duel, something Naruto excels at thanks to his teacher. The reason I had Naruto go alone because a whole team would have put 7 ninja on the wave mission and that would be overkill. Even sending a Jounin would be just a bit too much in my opinion. Why would Minato mind wipe someone who has shown no threat to the village in the way you are suggesting? That would be something not fitting of his character. Also, what capable shinobi has to worry about villagers assaulting them? Showtime, Naruto said to himself as he walked through the main entrance of the academy and looked up to see a sign posted up on the wall that pointed the Chunin hopefuls in the right direction. Naruto arched an eyebrow at the rather obvious attempt to help the contestants in the exams, but nonetheless followed the sign up the steps to the second floor. Whatever Naruto was expecting, it was not a group of people staring at a door where 2 smug-looking shinobi were standing guard. Naruto stood there at the top steps silently as he listened to shinobi from various countries complain about being denied entry. Naruto immediately recognized the 2 men guarding the room labeled as 301 from the number of times he had passed their booth. Sure, they were transformed into what Naruto assumed was their younger forms, but Naruto knew that as Izumo and Kotetsu, the village's eternal gate guards. Naruto watched as a genin from the leaf tried to force his way in only to be slugged in the jaw and kicked back towards his team, earning cries from the other shinobi who were getting nervous about their prospects of becoming Chunin. Naruto shook his head at the stupidity of the shinobi in front of him, if they could be called so. Are these people this stupid? I mean, it is barely an E-rank genjutsu they placed over the sign above the door. That, and we have only gone up 1 set of stairs at this point. Naruto thought incredulously as he stared at the protesting genin with a deadpan glare. Trying to save whatever brain cells he had left, Naruto forced his way through the group without saying a word and made it to the stairs to the 3rd floor. Naruto did not spare a second glance to the converging of idiots on the 2nd floor who deserved to be eliminated from this exam. Naruto had just missed a boy with green spandex and his team entering up the stairs he had just come from. Naruto walked up to the door to the real room 301 and slid open the door and took a few steps and letting the door slide shut. A wave of killer intent immediately tried to swallow Naruto up as he walked in alone. The genin in the room thought Naruto as an easy prey to be taken in this exam, however they had no idea how wrong they could be. Naruto shrugged off the weak killer intent since he had experienced much worse while training with Itachi and Mihawk. Naruto walked over to a table situated on the right side of the room. Naruto turned to his left to see a familiar group of shinobi glancing over at him with small smiles and one with indifference. Naruto recognized them as the blue-haired boy who he fought on the bridge and the fake hunter Nin as well. However, there was one Naruto did not recognize. The shinobi was wearing a black pinstripe dress shirt with a yellow tie, but Naruto could catch a glimpse of chain mesh underneath the guy's collar. The boy had blue hair much like Chojuro's, but also had yellow streaks running across the blue hair. Chojuro bowed slightly, which Naruto thought was weird. Hello again, Shinobi-san, it is nice to see you once again. I am afraid I forgot to get your name the last time we crossed blades. Chojuro informed Naruto with a somewhat regretful tone in his voice since Naruto had provided a wonderful duel. My name is Chojuro, by the way, Chojuro said while extending his hand out for Naruto to take in a handshake. Naruto took the handshake since he respected Chojuro's skills with the sword. Naruto told Chojuro and by proxy the rest of the Kiri Genin his name in return. Since Naruto only used his first name, they were blissfully unaware of Naruto's heritage. Naruto watched with slight amusement as Haku slid over to the bench of the table Naruto was sitting at. She kept getting closer but had yet to look at the young man in the eyes, which was only fueling said young man's amusement. Haku glanced to see Chojuro and her other teammate talking, so she turned back to face Naruto with a small smile. I was thinking on what you said on the bridge all that time ago, and I agree, trash like that doesn't deserve to live. I just wanted the chance to tell you that I admire your resolve. Haku tried to blurt out that last sentence as fast as she could. Naruto couldn't help but let out a small chuckle at Haku's nervous behavior around him, which only made the ice-release Kunoichi a little self-conscious. Naruto turned to face Haku with a small foxy grin. It is so nice to meet a serious Kunoichi. All of the Kunoichi around here are more interested in their looks or love life, Naruto stated with a frown and a blank tone with a matching deadpan expression. Haku giggled at Naruto's deadpan expression, drawing the attention of the other two Kiri Genin. Naruto just repeated what he said to Haku to the other two, getting chuckles from both Kiri shinobi, while Naruto wondered why he didn't take the chance and go to Kiri. The boy in dress clothing looked at Naruto with a grin, almost as if he could sense Naruto's strength, or maybe he was just an idiot. My name is Kakujio, the shinobi known as Kakujio introduced himself with a suave tone. Naruto wondered why he was named after the bishop piece in shogi. Then again, some people thought he was named after a ramen topping. Then something Naruto wasn't expecting happened. Naruto watched as a hand of yellow energy came out of his hand, and then he performed a small salute with the energy, or aura hand. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the blatant display of Kakujio's abilities. There are only a few